The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Racing is a sport that often goes into hibernation during the winter months. When things get too cold and everyone is weary from a long racing season, drivers take time to relax over the holidays and recharge. But winter in the racing world also doesn't last very long. Every January, sunny Florida opens its arms to road racers worldwide as they take part in one of the most prestigious endurance events this side of the Atlantic. And as always, the Majors seeks to recreate this challenge and set the best sim racers loose. We'll see who kicks off 2019 with a win as we get ready to watch the Daytona 2.4. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Bill Soup Zahn. Next to him is Sean Ambrose, and behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. Sean, the track is the same track they run the 2.4 each year in the majors, but this time the sun will go down on Daytona. Tell us about the circuit.
Welcome to the World Center of Racing, Joe, and sim racing fans. Yes, the sun will be going down on Daytona today. Listen, folks, this course, they completed it in 1959, 12 turns, currently 3.56 miles. And you know what? The Rolex 24-hour endurance event started in 1966, and today we get the 2.4 hours here in the majors. But the best way to take a look at it is to hop on board for another GSRC lap around Daytona.
All right, we've got Taylor Burris in the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Daytona. Right away, you've got the difficult braking for turn 1 to tackle. The transition off of the banking can often unsettle the car. Plus, you're turning and braking most of the way into the corner. Despite all this, it's still one of the most popular places to pass on the lap. As we weave through the little chicane, bring the car back to the left and you'll be braking for the International Horseshoe. You might sometimes see passes into here when the opportunity presents itself. There's a little access road off to the left of the exit too, which because it's paved, it's all fair game to use when getting the power down. We'll drift it back across, and in these GTE cars, the kink is easily flat out. But the best racing line is to hug the car to the left side to give yourself a nice entry into the Western Horseshoe. The tricky thing here is the way the corner tightens in the middle. It makes hitting the apex a bit of a pain. Turn 6, which will be the last one of the infield section, is probably one of the most important of the lap. Failing to get a good exit here will cost you a bunch of time on the oval portion. Plus, you'll want to protect yourself from attack by preventing the car behind you from getting as much of a slipstream as possible. Jumping ahead to the bus stop, it's going to be tempting to make an overtake into here, but any side-by-side racing is terribly risky and often doesn't end well. Once again, because we'll be flat out for a while, getting on the throttle smoothly and early will pay big dividends. And just like before, draft battles are probably going to be playing out all day. But as we bring it to the line at the Tri-Oval, you've now hopefully finished a lap around Daytona. You see a lap around Daytona where the sun was a little bit higher in the sky. We're going to see it go down until it becomes dark here today. But before we get to that darkness, let's take a glance at who we need to watch this season. Bill, Blake Reynolds finally got his championship, but what about this year?
Yeah, you see him down there, fourth on the overlay there, the 2018 season champion from the Pacific region. Blake, of course, he's going to be racing for Riding Shotgun Motorsports. He's in the prototypes tonight. Now, we are combining the Pacific and the Atlantic are coming together, so we thought we'd give a tip of the hat to Mike Kelly, who was the 2018 Atlantic champ. He raced for Turn 1 Heroes. I don't think Mike is going to race, at least in this event. I'm not sure if he signed up to race in the majors this season. Let's take a look and see who is on pole, though, today. Let's start with the guys on the prototypes there. Dallas Pataska, we got to meet him last season, and he came in, and he was impressive. He is fast in qualifying. Now, here's a name I'm not familiar with. We'll get to know him. German Afanador. He's the 2019 Daytona 2.4 pole sitter in the GTEs, reaching for V Apex Racing Group. That's in the Americas. And then a guy who picked up a win in the opening round last season. That's Travis Warling. He's really fast. Keep an eye on him. Coming back for Unorthodox Motorsports factory team. Joe?
So we'll have to watch out for those drivers. Now, if you have enjoyed the majors, of course, you can buy their gear at pacificmajors.com/store. That's right. They have their own store where you can buy stuff with majors on it, the majors, I should say, because, wow, I mean, this is now a worldwide series. So there's got to be definitely some people out there that want some. Actually, I kind of need to go check that out myself, because I certainly wouldn't mind having another racing shirt to sport at the various races I get to go throughout the year. And of course, a big thank you goes out to the majors for donating to their charity of choice this race, which is the American Cancer Society. Part of that influenced by Michael Thompson, one of the drivers in this series, who himself has been fighting cancer. We'll hopefully get to talk about him a little bit more later. You can see Paul Slavonic heading out onto the track now. Looks like the sun is going down here in warm-up, but the time will change. The virtual standard time, as we've come to call it here on GSRC, will switch over to a 3 p.m. start time. And since this is scheduled in the middle of winter, I believe, it should give us a very early sundown with this. Now, this is a new season. There's some new stories to worry about, especially with the combination of the Atlantic and the Pacific split being just basically the Americas this time, Sean. And part of that is that, well, we're getting some influx of teams, it seems. Some of these teams that we're seeing are familiar. Others are not. Who have you got your eye on?
Ooh, Joe, I'll tell you what, it's exciting. This new version of the majors, it seems to get better every year. But teams to watch, boy, there's an influx of new teams, yes, but I still like, I got to be honest with you, I still like Alliance. I think they're a really, really strong one. You talked about the usual big players in Kinetic and RSM. I think they're still the ones to beat. I think the new teams need to come in and kind of feel this out a bit, Joe, and maybe see. They've got to prove themselves, right? They've come in amongst some pretty strong established teams. I think this first season might be a bit of a proving ground. I could be wrong, but we'll see how this shakes out here in race number 1, round 1 here at Daytona.
Absolutely. Obviously, new competition out there, and sometimes you got to feel each other out, and you could be competitive in other series and find yourself a little bit swamped out here. And that, of course, also means that some drivers have moved around. Unfortunately, the main rival for Blake Reynolds last season was Christian Challoner. He switched over to the European, which kind of makes sense. He is from the UK, and I'm sure that's going to be a lot easier for him to make that time, as Jimbo Pfeiffer going to come out and get a little bit of warm-up here. Now, some of the drivers that have returned to the Americas include the likes of Ryan Worley. Now, we've had a chance to talk to him a little bit before this race happened, and we'll talk to him after the race as well. We'll get a good interview with him, but he told us a little bit about himself, and we've mentioned him before, Bill, about his special situation here in sim racing. He was born with a special defect, which left him with only, this is his phrasing of it, a right arm and hand, but with only 4 fingers on it, a left arm nub that goes from his shoulder to what would be his elbow, a right foot, but not really any leg, and a left leg about the length of someone's knee to their foot with a pretty normal foot on it. That presents a very interesting challenge in racing, and yet he's not one that I would take lightly out on track. He's won races in the majors. Very few people. There's pictures right there, Bill, of Ryan himself. This is an incredible story.
Yeah, it makes me kind of feel guilty for complaining when the wife puts an empty milk carton in the refrigerator. Kind of puts things in perspective. His hero, I think people will, obviously this is an obvious choice here, Alex Zanardi. And certainly what he has been able to do is really a testament to just dedication and just not letting things stop you. So congratulations to what he can do. And he is very competitive.
And we'll talk a little bit more about him later and see how his progress goes throughout the race. He's shown decently usually here, typically running in at the DP class, and I believe that's where he will be. Yes, he is running in the DPs once again today. So as we watch, the drivers' meeting has finished. That's why now the track is getting populated once again. Glad to see them coming out there. Now, with the coming of the weather this season, because they didn't have that last season with the sun going down with the majors. They just introduced it at the end of last season. That means the weather's going to change, the temperature's going to change, and Sean, of course, as John King put it to me when he was telling me a little bit about some of the concerns this race, people with very edgy setups might struggle.
Yeah. I thought John's comments were very telling. Yeah. So, all right, edgy, right? You don't want to be on that edge. So what do? Well, you try to set the car maybe a little bit more neutral than you would do when we were talking about it running under the same time conditions. The clouds weren't moving. The temperature wasn't going up and down 10 to 15 degrees at a time like we've seen here over the past month and a half or so now. Joe, honestly, grip is a big factor here at Daytona when you get down into both horseshoes, and of course the bus stop, that line into the bus stop, it will change your entry. You'll struggle with the tires, and honestly, how you set your downforce on all the classes, the GTEs, the GT3s, and the prototypes. I think it's going to be very, very important. You better have made the right call. I honestly, as someone who's been on the box a couple times, I kind of like the idea of maybe playing a little bit safe, especially in a 24-hour race. But, again, this is 2.4 hours. If you think you can get away with edgy and you have the talent behind the wheel to do it, then maybe you try it. But again, I like to be a little bit safer than that and try and get through a 2.4 today.
Just to follow up on the setups, with this having 3 splits, the top guys really don't have to worry so much about setup. They can get something that gets them in the top split. But if you're down at the bottom, if you're at the on the bubble, as we like to say at Indy, of being pushed down into the second split, you're not going to spend a lot of time in race setup. You're looking at something that's going to be fast because the splits are based on qualifying time. So watch out for some of those guys down at the bottom of the order here that really maybe not have the best race setup, or at least not a lot of practice time in the race setup.
That's true. Sometimes drivers get so focused on getting into that top split, they don't get much practice time. Mentioning those 3 splits, well, it's not just 3 splits, but 3 different regions. We already said that. And you can find them all here on the iRacing Esports Network. We're once again glad to get to air the Americas version of that here on the Global SimRacing Channel. But while you're here, please subscribe to the IESNs, where you can catch not just the World Championship races, but also many other private leagues that are aired not just by us, GSRC, but as well the likes of SimSpeed and RaceSpot and many more. Make sure and hit that big red button. Just a minute and a half here until we get to the green. And speaking of the other regions, the European region, now spoilers are upcoming. If you don't want to hear those, close your ears, obviously. Sean, I understand you have those in front of you.
Yeah, I do. In the prototypes, the Daytona prototypes, Gabriel Ruse takes the win for Kinetic Euro. And it was a pretty competitive race, and a lot of people watching, a lot of people racing. And in the GTEs, it was David Baker for a CQR club, and that was an interesting battle in that class as well. But in the GT3s, it was an old familiar name, now racing over in that European division. Christian Challoner takes the win over there for Kinetic Euro also. So Kinetic Euro taking 2 of the top spots on the podium, guys.
I mean, no surprise that Christian Challoner took a win right off the bat there. He won the most races last season. Here's a former champion, Lionel Callisto, starting or currently in 5th in the warm-up right now, racing the DPs once again. He's looking to maybe reclaim that crown, and of course racing for the dominant Alliance team. 4 championships under their belt now. As the clock ticks down, we're getting ready to read off the grid here in a moment. It is a pretty full field out here, 50 plus cars. They're going to be racing in the opening round. And as mentioned, 3 splits out there today. This is one of the more popular races. All right, let's go to that starting grid as it populates. And now starting on the pole, it is going to be Dallas Pataska. He'll be followed by Sam Adams in 2nd, with Eric Smith starting 3rd. Blake Reynolds will be P4. Then it's Steve Driscoll starting in 5th in the DPs. Lionel Callisto will start 6th. Kevin O'Keefe, nice qualifying from him, to be 7th. Ryan Worley, who we talked about earlier, will be 8th, with Michael Thompson 9th. 10th, Rounding out is Ross Banfield. Lance Nasir starts in 11th. Bob Beltrami, the Salami, starts 12th. Then in 13th, it's Houston Hamer. Rob Gall will be P14 at the drop of the green. Marcus Tracy, 15th. Peter Hebron, 16th. And Mark Herzog. Bill rounds out our DP field in 17th.
I got 17 GTEs as well. German Athanador is on the poles we talked about in the opening. Paul Darling outside of him. Clark Archer and Leif Peterson will be in row 2. Brian Bennett is going to be inside of Vincent Leheber, the Canadian. Samuel Scott and Richie Hearn, the former Real World IndyCar driver, make up the next row. Tom Stanley, Matthew Thunhurst. Chuck Chambliss is back with us with Brian Grandin next to him. Jimmy Hume, Adam Lundgren, Liam Quinn, the Dallara expert, going to do a full-time race for us this season. Terry Taylor and Adam Howlock wrap up the GTEs. Sean?
All right, and now down to the mighty, powerful GT3s in the Mercedes AMG. Travis Warling on the pole, the number 90. Alex Saunders going to start in second. Jimbo Pfeiffer, our good buddy, starting there in third. Kevin Hill starting fourth.
Hang in there.
Patrick Fleming, fifth place starting spot for him. Scott Corbin starting sixth in the number 54. The 111 of Trevor Clement starts seventh today. Paul Slavonic back in his Audi. There, the number 528 will start eighth. Dick Mueller, ninth place start for him. Mark Schindel in the number 216 rounds out the top 10 in the GT3s. Then you go back to 11th. Andrew Oakey in the number 96. 12th, Jeffrey Garzotto. 13th, Brian McGreevy is back with us this year, driving from the left coast. Taft Baldwin in the number 5, starting 14th. 15th, Ben Zahner, Casey Drake, and Dan Garber.
And the green flag is out. Dallas Pataska leads the way for round 1 of the 2019 majors. Let's see how they handle coming into this first corner. Few cars still too wide into there as they sort themselves out, but it's looking pretty clean here for the DPs. Let's go to the GTEs.
Matador out in front, Darling right behind him as the group goes into the very first corner. Stuck on the outside and losing positions on the top side. That was Brian Bennett, but he gets him loaded up. He's going to settle in for 5th in class.
Saunders, Warling already fighting down into turn 1. Saunders right now following here into the horseshoe. Just behind them, there's a car off, one of the Ferraris. I didn't see who that was, guys. I missed that.
Looks like Matthew Thunhorst had some problems going into the International Horseshoe. I didn't see what happened to him, but he's got it going. Thankfully, not the entire GT3 field got by him before he was able to get back on track. That seems to be the only issue we had at the start of this race. This is a good sign here for the majors.
Single file through the first 2 classes. A little bit of passing on the super speedway, but not so much. Everybody behaving.
Tasca still leading. Eric Smith is giving chase. In fact, he's got a good draft, and he might actually have a chance at the lead here to finish the first lap, but it looks like no, he is going to stop and wait. And that brings me to a point, Bill, that I was told about by John King. It might be marginal on fuel, so Eric could already be thinking long-term here.
Can't believe with 2.4 hours a minute, an hour and 44 minutes of race to go, they're already thinking about fuel. But the smart guys are smarter than me. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely. And it looks like they did, in fact, change the start time of the race. So it did not start at 3 p.m. It looks like it is 2000 hours, so 8 p.m. here at Daytona Virtual Standard Time. As we switch over to the GTEs, this is a Fanador leading Darling, leading Archer.
And Joe, great start in the GT3s. They've gone line to stern. Everybody behaving themselves really well here early.
And the bad news as we look at the GT3s here is you can see Thunhorst has made some inroads through this pack, but well, Sean, the GTs and GT3s are really close on pace, so this is really not the field that he wanted to be in the middle of.
No, definitely not. That could make things very difficult. definitely some battling going on for positions here early in the middle of that G3 field. Taft Baldwin and Dick Mueller having a really, really good battle at the moment.
This is for a 10th place, actually, top 10 between Baldwin and Mueller. Both of them returning from last season here in the majors. And again, if you're wondering how they score this, because they still all are fighting for a single drivers championship, the winners all get the same points, and then it drops in greater gaps between the positions within each class.
Boy,
You know what? Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say Kevin Hill just really struggled through the bus stop, guys, and he's going to give up 2 positions here. No, 3. Wow, that really cost Kevin.
Ooh, yeah. Well, thankfully it wasn't on the first lap. There you can see him down in the GT3s. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. He's down to 9th, and it looks like the bleeding's going to stop there because Taft Baldwin is the next one up with a big gap back. One of our unorthodox racing drivers there in the number 52. Bad start, but if you're going to have a problem in an endurance race, Sean, they always say have it at the beginning.
Right, yeah. Yes, if you're going to wreck the car, definitely.
Just to clarify, that's the name of his racing team. He's not like left-handed.
Yes,
Well, he might be
Unorthodox
left-handed.
Racing is the team.
Yeah. You know, I've been watching the dynamic of this race, and for the most part, all the passing early on has been done on the super speedway section, on the oval part. Nothing going on through the horseshoes of the technical section, even down into corner number 1. Everybody being very, very careful early on.
Yeah, it's interesting how calm of a start this is. Now, I don't believe the GTEs and GT3s are as marginal on fuel strategy. There should be a little bit straightforward 2 stops for both of them. It's mainly the DPs that we have a giant question mark over.
And just to follow up on that point, Joe, just from my experience as a commentator, they're really close still. You would think if they were racing at 100%, you would see them start to stretch away, but that's not the case. The prototypes are nose to tail, all the way back to Driscoll in 6th position.
You gotta have to wonder if Dallas is not really in the spot he wants to be in. Of course, he could also be lifting and coasting in a few of these corners, so he's right on board from our GTE drive.
We got a mess. About 3rd position, it looked like it was, but Blake Reynolds was involved in it.
Ooh. This was in the Western Horseshoe. Oh, looks like it started in front of him. It was Sam Adams. Wow, Blake did an incredible job avoiding this. Watch this avoidance maneuver. I cannot believe he missed this car.
Wow.
Cat-like reflexes.
We're going to go on board with him here. Watch this, guys.
He loses position, but he puts it off in the grass, and he just, as if he's just, parking the car in the driveway. Oh.
I would not have been able to miss that car. That is incredible how quickly he knew how to get out of the way. And that has not abated. Blake getting a good run out of the bus stop. Driscoll, Nasir, and Adams right in front of him. So he may have lost position, but he didn't lose time. And now we're going to go 2 by 2 as we come up to the tri-oval.
Yeah, this changes the name of the game a little bit, though. If they've lost a little bit of ground to the guys up in front, and Blake is not going to let Pataska drive away with this. So don't be surprised now if you start to see Reynolds make his way through these guys and maybe lead this pack back up to the front, too.
Slight lockup from Lance Nasir, but they all get through turn 1, and they all get back single file. They are starting to catch back up to Lionel Kalisto, who now finds himself in 3rd in the number 2 car.
Yeah, the gap is 4 seconds from Eric Smith back to Kalisto. So that's the gap you got to watch out for.
Riding on board with Kalisto, looking back at the train of cars behind him. Not seeing any moves into here, so this looks like it's calmed down in the DPs. Let's check in back on our GTE drivers battle for the lead, because that also has a train.
It does indeed.
It does, actually, and they're getting a little... At the end of this train for the top 3, you've got the recovery drive going on right now by Matthew Thunhorst, who's trying to get back up with the GTEs, and he's kind of having to follow at the moment while they, like I said, fight in front of him. Jimbo Pfeiffer really got it on the edge right now as he follows Saunders and Warling, who've really kind of backed off on each other right now. Haven't tried to press each other too hard, Joe. right now, these drivers driving a pretty smart race up here at the front of the GT3 field.
And I think that Matthew Thunhorst Alliance car certainly is causing something of a gap back to Scott Corbin as top three start to pull away. Let's see if Matthew can maybe start to get around these guys using the extra power of the GTE on the oval. Man, he even in a straight line, Matthew is struggling. So he's going to have to, oh, there we go, under braking, the extra downforce, and he's got one. And poor Jimbo Pfeiffer has to let him through. His fight is not with Thunhorst. Let's hope that he can use the draft to stay with the top two.
Whirling all full close coming off the exit of that bus stop, Joe. You know, there's a limit there, or you suffer that slowdown, and he was just on top of that curve coming off there.
You're going to see a battle into turn one. Doesn't look like it. We did have a battle in the GTEs. This was in ninth. Lindgren, Stanley, and Chambliss went side by side into the first corner, and it got very marginal, especially for Chambliss. I wonder if we can get a replay of this.
Take a look at them. These are the only guys that are really battling. The front six guys all race in the same order that they qualify. Take a look at this one. 3 wide.
Woo! And Chambliss with 2 wheels in the dirt, and they all still come out of it. This is a testament to the skill that they have in the top split here in the majors. Going to see it one more time from Chambliss's view. I would have wrecked that car. I would not have been able to hold on to that.
Want to go quickly to 5th position overall. This is Lionel Callisto. He is being freight trained right now. He had been the cork in the bottle and going around him into corner number 1, trying to get it done. That's Blake Reynolds, and he does. He's been holding up this group, and they've been losing touch with Eric Smith, who's running in 2nd position. That gap now, I told you, was 4 seconds, now 6.2. Sad Adams leads this group. He's trying to catch up.
The new order in that train that you're watching on screen is Adams, Nasir, Reynolds, Callisto, Driscoll, Worley, and O'Keefe. It's a lot of cars from 3rd place back to 9th place, effectively.
Right, we don't need to go there because nothing going on, but it's Pataska and Smith. They're just running about 4 or 5 car lengths apart, just putting in some fast laps.
And still they're not done with the battle because Sam Adams now getting passed by Blake Reynolds. He moves 1 more up. Lance Nasir now up at the top. And we are not even a little over 10 minutes into this race, so still quite a bit left to go. They weave their way through the bus stop chicane and back out. No cut course penalties this time. That could certainly hurt this early on when you want to retain that draft and try and save some fuel. Right on board with Adams in 5th.
He can get on the back. I would think that maybe Reynolds is the guy you want to get on the back of as we see the pass being made there. Work their way back up to the front, too.
That would be my choice. And they're both going to be able to get by Nasir.
Yeah, I like this. Now, I tell these boys, just behave now. Let's let Blake do what Blake does, and let's see if we can get up to the front.
Ooh, that'll be using some fuel, though, so
Yeah.
wonder if they're going to have to give up on that 3-stop strategy, or 2-stop strategy, rather.
Worry about that later. Let's get up there. You know, we haven't really talked about the GTEs. There's honestly nothing going on there. Talk about passive. It's a Fanador. He's been in front the entire time. The front 6 guys race in the exact same order they qualified. Little bit of a gap opening up now between 3rd and 4th, between Archer and Peterson. But still, the front 6 race just as they qualified. The only guy to make a pass, Richie Hearn, was able to get around Adam Lingram to get up a spot.
Well, and Soup, actually, Sam Scott just got around Chuck Chambliss coming down the front tri-oval there into turn 1, and now Chambliss back on the hammer here, trying to get that spot back.
If you're a fan, that's where your attention has been, because those guys have been putting on the show, racing about what did they get, about
10th
11th
place.
class.
Yeah, that's for 10th, yeah.
They work their way through the infield down to the western horseshoe. Scott is the machine in front. You see in white, the black Ferrari going to Chuck Chambliss. This is going to be a good opportunity right here. These cars don't give huge draft compared to the other two classes, but as we've seen, the oval is a popular spot and just can't get the power down Chambliss. You can see that white Porsche just becoming a dot in the windscreen.
There he goes. You can see the sun. This is a great angle, though. I love these in-car shots because you get to see the sun begin to set here in Florida. Joe, I don't mean to correct you, but this was supposed to be scheduled for January. That there was a little bit of a problem in the platform. Oh, here we go. Where are we going here?
But Beltrami, in the international horseshoe, he managed to spin it by himself, but it was as he was making a pass on Ross Banfield. The salami, unfortunately, finds himself pointing the wrong way. Great avoidance by Banfield, too. And you're right, Bill. I'd seen that after I said something. It looks like it's set in May today.
Yeah.
So,
but nevertheless, they got it set just about the right time. The sun will set while we're racing here.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I love to see is really getting to have the drivers adapt to changing conditions. As we switch up to the GTE leaders once more, Fanador still leading in his Ferrari, ahead of Darling, ahead of Archer. In fact, Ferraris really are the popular one up at the top of the GTEs.
Boy, they sure are. You got to go a long way down till you find your first Porsche, way down in oh my goodness, probably about 8th or 9th in class.
They've recently reconfigured the BOP in these cars, and it seems to certainly favor the Ferraris here at Daytona. But they will have these cars at other tracks during the season, and that could yet still switch around. Meanwhile, down in the GT3s, we got a battle for 5th going on, Sean. Looks like Clement, I'm doing a Bill here. Clement trying to hold off a bunch of people.
Well, actually, he just got around Slavonic, so we've got a couple of Alliance teammates, working together here. The thing is they've kept Mark Schindel in the mirrors, not been able to get around both of them because of the work they've been doing together. It's kind of slowed Schindel down just a bit, I think, Joe. And Fleming has been pulled into this mix also now, as Trevor and Paul continue to kind of pull away here just a little bit. Obviously, when you get into these straightaways and you get into the tri-oval, things start to kind of even themselves out again, Joe, with this draft here.
So as we watch them come back to the tri-oval here, we'll start yet another lap. Still more than 2 hours left on the clock here today.
One thing I've noticed is how long we've been racing, and we're still not into lap traffic yet. But just the closing rate, these cars are a little more equally, the lap times are a little closer together than some of the stuff we've been used to seeing.
Absolutely. In fact, they are coming up on some of the GT3s. Brian McGreevy is ahead of the DPs, and they might actually catch him in the infield here. I can say from experience, Sean, that it can be a little tricky getting by even the GT3 slowest class in the DPs.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially when you get down in here to the infield section, the horseshoes here. You're better off being patient in these early laps here and just waiting till you get to a more. Listen, there's plenty of straightaway to work with here. There's plenty of room on the tri-oval to make these passes. There's not any reason for urgency with 2 hours and 6 minutes left.
I wouldn't say so. Just try and stick to your plan for now. And we have no cautions, of course, in this race, with it being the roadside of iRacing. They're just going straight from the green flag all the way to the checkers. You got to keep that car pointed forward and going as best you can. We get a good onboard view looking back from one of our DPs as they start to overtake the GT3 cars.
I want to quickly go to Blake Reynolds in racing in 3rd in the prototypes. What the traffic has been able to allow him to do is get a little bit of distance on Sam Adams now. Adams in jeopardy of losing connection with Reynolds, and Reynolds has been able to close the gap by about a half a second on Smith.
Yeah, just as you mentioned him, I went to look at the gap, and he does seem to have pace on Pataska and Smith, which is good news for Blake. Now, again, we don't know what this will mean for strategy for Blake, though. This could be him just throwing any sort of fuel saving out the window and going for it.
And, of course, the prototype leaders are just working their way through some serious GT3 traffic right now.
This is going to be their first time through, which means it's the thickest it's going to be.
Yep.
So it's certainly going to be the most frustrating and could make a big difference between many of the battles.
So you look, they come up, the leaders coming up on the back of Jeffrey Garzotto and Andrew Oakey.
One of those in the DP class starting to catch them as well. We mentioned him earlier, Ryan Worley. He's currently sitting in 7th. And he started this race in 8th, so up 1 position is not bad, but not great strides. He's still got about 2 seconds up to Lionel Callisto. Oh, and something happened to L'Herbier. This is in the GTEs. Looks like turn 1. Oh, and he had some help. Let's take a look at the replay. He was trying to pass Leif Peterson around the outside. That's L'Herbier in the white Ferrari, getting spun around and gets it going again, but how much damage is on the car from that?
Yeah, Peterson, I think, got bumped into the wall when they made contact. Sorry. I'm so sorry for Leaf. He was trying to leave him room, and what happened, he got the left sides on the grass there, and that kind of pushed him to the outside line, and they got together.
Second time we've seen a car have to get 2 wheels into the grass down into turn 1. This time did not turn out as well, at least for one driver. Peterson going once again in 6th. L'Herbier falls to 7th from that. This is Adam Lindgren giving chase on L'Herbier right now as they come up to the tri-oval. In fact, he's got a huge head of steam. And it looks like Lindgren, this is into the bus stop chicane. He gets it done with a nice clean pass to the inside. Back down in GT3s, Jimbo Pfeiffer and Scott Corbin have had some action.
Well, Joe, right now it's Corbin is the guy they're chasing. He had broken away and honestly had gotten out to almost a 2-second lead on this pack that we were talking about just a little while ago. Trevor Clement has now pulled him in, and Paul Savanik, that work they were doing together is starting to pay off. Everybody in the draft, as Dallas Pataska now starts to make his run out of NASCAR 4 and down into the tri-oval here. And is he going to get past everybody going into 1? That's the big question. I think they're going to run out of track, Joe.
It looks like at least they got past 2 of them down into 1, but now the rest of the DP is a little bit stuck behind these cars and coming into the road course section of the track. They can maybe squeak by in some places like this as Dallas Pataska manages to get by Paul Slavonic just barely. Now down into the Western Horseshoe rather. Blake Reynolds having to weave his way through. He gets by Kevin Hill. Blake Reynolds has cut it down, though. He is under 4 seconds behind Smith.
Yeah, well, Smith is having a hard time through traffic trying to hang on the back of Dallas. Dallas has really been weaving his way through. He's got it back to about 0.3 of a second now, as the draft is clearly visible. And I'll tell you what, Joe, I've noticed that a lot of these prototype drivers will get up right behind the GT3 or the GTEs and suck on them because the closing rate isn't all that quick. They can get a good toe off of them. But yeah, Reynolds is coming.
And Eric Smith is a good example right here of some of this new, fresh blood The V Apex team showing to be a big force early in the race. As he's been trying to chase down Dallas Pataska, he closes in on the rear of him. Is a little bit off to the side, but doesn't make a serious attempt down into turn 1.
I think he's happy in second. I think
agree.
he knows he's not going to drive away from Pataska if he makes the pass, and so why not sit back there and, maybe I'll have to spend a little less time filling the tank.
Up next is a trio of cars. It's Whirling, Saunders, and Pfeiffer. This is a battle for position, so they're not going to be really ready to move aside very quickly. Pataska has to wait here through the western horseshoe, all of them accordioning together. And it's a very short stretch down to turn 6. He's probably going to have to wait again here. Indeed, he does not attempt to make the pass, but neither does Smith. And now that the cars can stretch their legs out, looks like Pataska will finally be able to get by these 3.
These 3, Joe, have, I said it in the beginning, they've really behaved themselves. They could be just going all out, fighting for that top spot, but at the moment, they're just driving around, keeping it clean, and they let the DP leaders get by without any trouble there. But Whirling keeps doing that out of the bus stop. How long is it going to be before he gets a slowdown penalty? I guess he knows where the limit's at. He's got it right on it every time out of that bus stop.
We're right on board with Jimbo Pfeiffer, who certainly could have had an opportunity, but just is resting in the draft of Alex Saunders. Pfeiffer, of course, known for being a tester, a video game tester for Turn 10, which makes Forza Motorsports.
Apparently that job is not as fun as it sounds, yeah. It sounds fun, but I think it's real work.
So, coming around the international horseshoe, now Blake Reynolds has caught them. And he's going to get one of them by Pfeiffer, but not the other 2. Saunders still ahead of him. This could cost our current champion some time. This,
Sorry.
a little bit of a bobble there from Blake
Yeah.
Reynolds. I saw it too.
And Saunders almost the victim there with that bobble. Boy, that was close. That's about as close a moment as we've seen so far.
All right, we've broken to 2 hours left here. And I tell you what, I don't want to jinx it, but this has been a very, very calm race. We've already got the cars dealing with traffic and haven't really seen too much go haywire. So I'm impressed with how the drivers have cleaned up their act this season. There were some talks last time around about some of the driving standards, how some races could be a little bit crash heavy, but this is, I'm duly impressed with the way that the top split has shown up and really focused on making sure this is a clean race out here.
And as we look at that battle from Thandor and Darling and Archer, one of the incidents that we did see on screen was the incident with Peterson when he got in with Le Hébert. And what that happened, what that did was actually break up that train, which was about 7 or 8 cars deep. Now it's 3, with poor Brian Bennett racing the wheels off of his car, trying to catch up to the front 3. He's about 3.5 back of Archer and about 6 seconds up on Richie Hearn, who races in 5th.
Never fun to be in no man's land, especially this early. But, well, at least it lets him focus on his race. Question is, are we going to see Richie Hearn get a good finish finally in a majors race? Talk about a guy who's snake bit.
I know he'd like one.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been very shy about his disappointment and not being able to get that done.
Absolutely. He's in the top 5 right now in those GTE cars, which is not a bad showing. Still yet to win a race, though, and he's been around in this series for a while. Taking a look at the top drivers, though, the Fanador Still leads Darling, still leads Archer. Their positions have not changed on the podium. In fact, their gaps between each other haven't changed either.
I think Richie Hearn believes, they have a spare car. I might as well use it. I mean, that's kind of I think that's his attitude in this series.
So we watch them work their way through the infield. This is for 7th now that we're watching. Behind Richie Hearn, Leherbier leads Lindgren, leads Stanley. Stanley, one of our few drivers hailing from the UK.
Yeah, the graphic boys were talking to me from their office saying that they were doing the flags and a lot of stars and stripes when it comes to doing the overlays in this series, especially now that they've combined them.
I believe is it 2 a.m. over there right now for Tom Stanley?
Yeah.
It's pretty late. Must have a different the graveyard shift or something compared to most people.
Actually, the series manager, Mike Willett, pretty darn slick. The Atlantic series went away. But still, if you're racing on the Eastern Seaboard, you can stay up a little later, race on the West Coast, or race a little earlier in the European class, or even I think the international thing will work for you on a day early. So everything's okay.
Absolutely. I think it's a good spread of time slots. Now, is it just me, or is Peterson starting to be caught by Leherbier, or is it going the other way?
Well, no, remember, those two got together in
that's
turn
right,
one,
yes.
Peterson was first out. Leherbier, I thought, maybe picked up some more damage. So we'll see how that works out.
Oh, and look at all these DPs starting to complicate things. That was Pataska, our leader in the fastest class coming through. Eric Smith, you mentioned it before, just not as wily trying to deal with these slower classes. He's now lost about a second on the 023. So the number 32 has got a little bit of work to do. Let's see if the rest of the traffic might help him.
It will be a good indication if Smith is able to stay with Pataska because of the draft or because of pace. I've seen Smith fall as far back as almost a second and a half and be able to run Pataska back. So
Pataska's going to be able to get by Peterson through turn 6. Not the best line for him, and that gives a little bit of that gap back to Eric Smith, who now pulls the draft on Peterson and then swings his way around the high side of the banking.
Sean, my driving instructor back in high school told me this is the most dangerous time to be driving. It's twilight right now.
Yeah, that's true.
What I learned.
The twilight hours can cause funny things. We got a car stopped. Dan Garber with trouble here, guys.
And that was in turn 1. This was as we were watching Chambliss, who just had a pit stop come in and out. It looks like Garber was all on his own.
He was, Joe, and I think maybe just a little bit too much brake, or maybe cranking on the wheel a little bit too much there, a combination of both, but it gets him around, and he actually does make contact with that inside concrete retaining wall. Does do a little bit of damage on the left front of that Audi.
And, a replay of Herzog having a problem.
Happened right before Dan's spin.
So that puts both Herzog and Garber back last in each of their respective classes. Boy, you want to talk about a versatile driver, which is what the majors tends to try to bring out. Mark Herzog raced yesterday night in short track ovals and now is out here in top split. Even though he's last in it right now, he's still top split in a very, very different car.
Sean, you and I had the pleasure of calling Mark Herzog racing over in the Bootleg Racing League in those SK Modified.
And racing hard. He's formidable in that modified, that SK Modified, and certainly a contender over there to win races every time he steps into that car.
See, I think they should have an exchange program. You put the DPs at Martinsville, and you put the, modifieds here on the road course. So we switch down to Sam Adams, currently sitting in 4th now, who has caught back up to Blake Reynolds in some of the traffic. He's brought Nasir along with him, but Kalisto not. Kalisto's back in 6th and just continuing to fall back.
You know, just to follow up on that point you were making about Herzog, and just one of the things that Mike Willett does on this thing, he allows ringers to come in. It's not a closed series. You don't have to be a full-time member. You can come in, do a one-off. And if you're racing a GSRC series and you're a top driver over there, and one of the cars coming over and racing in the majors,
which last year gave us a talent that we were familiar with, as we watch Eric Smith here still racing in 2nd. Apparently, Jimbo Pfeiffer is also falling back in the GT3s.
Just a bit.
Go
ahead, Joe. I was just going to say, Jimbo has fallen off the pace just a bit here the past couple laps. Saunders and Warling have started to pull away, and it really hasn't been because of any traffic coming through. He's just seemed to have lost the pace there on our leaders.
I was going to say, one of the drivers that we didn't necessarily discover, but I think maybe was swayed over, is Liam Quinn, who is currently running 15th in the GTEs, who is a dominant driver in the Indy car.
I mentioned it when I was running down the starting grid. We won't see much of him today, but wait till we go to those open-wheel Delaras. Woohoo! He'll shine.
I'd say he's not doing too bad overall in terms of the entirety of the drivers competing here in the Americas for the majors, because he is in top split, but I think he's discovering just how heavy the competition is. And we got a battle for the lead in GTE as Paul Darling looks around the outside of German Fanador in the first corner, but it does not go off. And that's the first time I'd say we've seen a little bit of aggressiveness here in this class. Ooh, stays right on top of him, Bill.
You know what that tells me? It tells me we're getting close to pit stop time.
We already had Chambliss in.
Yeah, these guys start to get a little more aggressive when they know they're going to be coming down pit lane sometimes. They don't care if they race in 2nd, but they like to be first down pit lane.
Yeah, the Chambliss pit stop, though, Joe, I saw him take his spare car. They got the spare car out of the garage, and he had to use that. Already he had a little bit of damage on it when he brought it in, but it was a quick stop, and that will obviously change his strategy just a bit based on when he's going to come in here.
That's the likes of Dallas Pataska, leader in DPs, now swinging through. On screen, we saw Rob Gall for Dog Bear take his stop. These DPs can usually go about 45 minutes around here. And that looks like just shy of 45 minutes, so I don't think that Rob Gall is going to be trying for one fewer stop. Dog Bear probably more well known for being strong on the oval racing, but certainly can hold their own on the roadside.
Just want to point out that Dallas Pataska has finally made his way through all of the GTE drivers now.
That's both of the slower classes, which means, he's got Dan Garber in front of him, but other than that, it's very sparse. So now's the time where he can start to put some hot laps in. Meanwhile, we got a battle here in the GTEs. Taylor and LeHerbier.
It's getting the better of him there going down into turn 1, Joe.
But he's also behind Tom Stanley, and was he behind him before? Has he lost positions recently?
Yeah, remember LeHerbier was closing in on Leif Peterson last time we talked about it, and so yeah, he's lost a ton of spots. He's lost spots to Stanley and Chambliss, and 2 spots for sure.
We are starting to see a few cars spread out now in each of the classes. Before we had huge trains everywhere we looked, but drivers have used the traffic to help spread themselves apart from whoever was chasing them and using the slipstream. Starting to be able to run their own race. We're watching Patrick Fleming currently try to battle with Trevor Clement for that 5th spot.
Yeah, well, you know what? He's got his mirror full of Mark Schindel. It's been that way for a while. Schindel, actually one of our bigger movers here in the GT3 field, already picking up 4 spots today and continuing to make that charge.
Crazy.
Sorry, that's 3. See, I'm doing math again, Joe. 3 spots. Guys.
Racing for the ever-powerful Kinetic team, who returns for the 2nd season, still trying to dethrone the team of the car in front of him, Alliance. Of course, that is Alliance Core there that Fleming is racing for. Multiple teams both in Kinetic and in Alliance. Sort of like Red Bull, if you will, where they have the big boy team and they have their junior teams, which they can pull from if need be.
A lot of teams doing that this season, including riding shotgun. They're actually sporting 3 teams. So we'll get to know those teams a little more as the season gets a little deeper.
Working their way through turn 1. Clement, the fellow Alliance driver, still well ahead of Fleming. 2 against 1. Doesn't quite seem fair, but I'm sure that Schindel will be able to handle it.
Well, their teammate Jimbo Pfeiffer still holding down 3rd. Corbin not been able to really pick up any ground. In fact, that's gone down to almost 4.5 seconds now. So your top 3 have continued to kind of pull away. Pfeiffer has been a little bit more consistent here recently, Joe. In fact, that last time around, him and Travis Warling practically had the same lap time. It only separated by a couple hundredths of a second.
And up in the prototypes, we got a little bit of a battle going on. Worley and Driscoll. The 770 trying to hold off the number 62. As they come up in the midst of traffic, leave Peterson having to give way. That allows Michael Thompson to gain momentarily, but unfortunately he goes side by side with Peterson, and that costs him. So Worley was up to 7th for a while. He's now back to 8th. Must have had a mistake that we missed somewhere along the lines. But I love this personal quote that Worley gave us that he tries to live by in terms of dealing with his condition. He says, know your limitations, then defy them. I think
that's great.
That sums up his racing very well. Ah, the salami is in. Dog Bear driver comes down to his stall, finds it nicely, and gets up on the jacks. Now, I understand, Sean, real quick, Bill. I understand, Sean, that it's free tires in these DPs, so really no trickery going on there, right?
No, just take them. Take him, absolutely. You still have to watch for the outlap in that DP, though, man. It's wicked scary, and especially here at Daytona.
Sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
Step in here and just clarify as we look at the prototype leaders going on here. When Joe talks about free tires, he means free as in it doesn't cost you any time. For those new to iRacing, you actually do not have to pay for any of the equipment.
Thank you.
Tires are free.
Well, you got to pay for the car.
There you go.
In iRacing.
But only once. You can break as many as you like.
Yes, a mere $15, and you can have infinite DPs. Which, by the way, if you haven't driven this car on iRacing, it is very, very fun.
And listen, you can get a turnkey C7. I think the last one I saw auctioned off went for like about $450. Turnkey. That's $450,000, folks.
Yeah. I was so close to winning that
spare
one.
Parts.
Hold on,
I was at 449
my
of them.
house.
The guys, yeah, I want to give a tip of the hat to Eric Smith. I don't know much about him, but he is impressing, this commentator. He's been able to stay with Dallas Batasco, who I do know. I got a hunch that when pit stops come, I'm going to be surprised if Smith beats him.
And you know what? I feel like Eric is giving us early signs that he is a face to watch out for. Because, and it looks like one of them pitting, but not the other. Ooh, and remember, Dallas was leading. An extra lap worth of fuel for Eric Smith, it looks like.
And he's got pretty good track ahead of him. So let's see if he can hot lap here. After one lap, he's going to be in a lot of trouble, but I think he's going to be okay for one lap before he runs into a train of cars. Ooh, he is hot lapping.
Oh, boy.
Pushing it. He knows he's got to now. I'm pretty sure whoever they've got on the box for V Apex is definitely telling him to go, go, go. Worley comes in, which a driver, and I think this is a new move. I believe Worley was not on Elite West last season, so glad to see him get on a very fast team. Elite West sort of, I would say, kind of one of the underdogs. They tend to have fast drivers, but they don't get enough mentions.
They seem to race together on the track a lot, though. Whenever we do a podcast, there seems to be a swarm of Elite West cars. They huddle.
All right, on board with Eric Smith. I believe he should be coming in this time. As he comes down the backstretch through the bus stop chicane. The Mid-South driver weaves his way around the lap traffic of Brian McGreevy. Give himself, make sure he doesn't get blocked off from the pit entrance. Something you always got to worry about here at Daytona.
Holy
he stays out
smokes!
for another one. Ooh, this is bad news for Pataska.
And that traffic that I thought he was going to catch, well, it's going to be one or two cars in.
What's happened to the Wyvern driver here? Oh no, we're going to one of the Dog Bear drivers. This is Herzog.
He was in the horseshoe. Oh, there was right in front of him. It was Scott
Marcus Tracy.
Is that who it was, Tracy?
Yeah, he was trying to avoid him. Wow, who was the GT3 car that nearly got into him there, though? My goodness. This could have been so much worse.
Richie Hearns just had a problem in the bus stop, guys.
So we come back live. Poor Richie's taken a tow, which means that it must have been serious.
It was, Joe. Boy, he's going to miss the entry on the bus stop right here, and there you're on board with him. He noses it right into that tire barrier. He had to tow. He was stuck in that barrier. He wedged it right in there.
I've done this so many times in so many different cars. You would think it's a straight line into there. You would think it's one of the easier corners to brake for, but man, if you're pushing the car, you saw the results right there. I guarantee you Richie was not taking it easy when that happened.
No. He's going to get that spare car, Joe, but unfortunately he's got to wait out the pit stop. That's going to really cost him here. It's about a just under 2 minute wait, and Eric Smith pulling it down. I see another one coming in. That's riding shotgun coming down just behind him.
All right, so where is Pataska? Pataska's just coming through the bus stop now. That's Blake Reynolds. A little bit of slight damage on the left front of the car. Wyvern driver out of turn 4. Eric Smith still stationary in his stall. He's right towards the front with his third place qualifying.
There he goes.
He is out. And where is Pataska? Pataska's coming around. And this is going to be awful close. Pataska has the momentum, but it's a shorter run on the inside at the pit exit, and I think he's got him.
That's how you do it.
A new leader in the overall race. For the first time, Eric Smith is your new P1. Well, effective P1. Steve Driscoll has yet to stop. Had to get the soundbite in.
Give a tip of the hat to Steve Driscoll. This is the kind of race he's notorious for. Just staying out there, staying out of trouble, and finds himself in the top 5 when everything's said and done. Probably more of an oval driver, I would think, if we talk to him. He may not agree with me, but seems to have more success in that discipline.
I tell you what, bless these unorthodox racers, because each of their teams, even though they're the same ski and have different colors, that's going to make it so much easier to tell which team they're on. Thanks for that, guys.
Yep.
For some of us, maybe colors help. Not everybody.
Bill, is that bus heavy?
Jeez. 2019. I'm gonna know my limitations and then push through them. I think that's what I was taught today.
I like that. All right. Steve Driscoll comes in for his scheduled stop. That's going to be the last of our DP drivers to take their first pit stop. This is the battle for the lead in the GTEs. Fanador may have had to withstand an attack from Darling, but since we left them, I haven't seen any more out of the A51. Down into the Western Horseshoe one more time. Makes you wonder, was that a serious attempt from Paul Darling, or is he pushing hard? Is he actually trying to chase? Is this the limit for these two drivers, or what's going on up here?
I saw Darling fall back quite a ways when they were in traffic, and he was able to get back up there. I was worried that maybe German was going to give Paul a lesson of what's going on, but that's not the case. Oh my, doing a good job of hanging back there in second. He's left Clark Charger behind him.
And the interesting thing about this is because these GTEs have not pitted yet, and Herzog was our last in class, he's actually fallen behind them on track. And Sean, I know I harp on this sometimes, but I never like when I see faster class cars actually behind the slower class ones in order of overall position, because those blue flags disappear.
Yeah, they do, and that move over flag. Remember, that's just a suggestion, Joe. But when you don't see it at all, that could be a little make everybody feel a little uneasy around you there if you're not paying attention. So, and listen, when you're trying to make up ground here, it's kind of easy to lose focus, especially sometimes when you're just out on these straightaways digging.
Boy, we saw Darling take an interesting racing line down into one, taking it really deep. Ran it really wide through the apex, and now he's flashing his lights at German Athanador saying, let's go.
We took a quick glance over there because I'm glad that we did. We don't need to go back to it, but that was Pataska chasing Eric Smith in the DPs that we were looking at. Pataska's caught him, so maybe the roles have changed, and the 023 will be saving fuel behind the 32. We'll have to wait and see. So they come back onto the oval one more time. Go ahead, Bill.
6 seconds on Sam Adams now. Adams was able to get around Reynolds at the pit stop. Reynolds was in third, trying to run those guys down. I don't mean to play favorites, but it is kind of refreshing to see Blake Reynolds have to work a little bit.
Well, I think it's a great sign, and we knew that Dallas was fast. He won some races last season. But now that he's going to be here for the full season, this means we've got a championship challenge for Blake Reynolds, and a good one, because Dallas seemed to be fast in multiple disciplines. And really the name of the game over the course of the season isn't necessarily winning races, as we've found out the last 2 seasons. As the prototype lead has changed hands, and Pataska is back in front. I think this was a simple slipstream move.
Yep.
So Pataska is not interested in sitting behind and saving fuel. But to finish my point, it's not winning races that wins championships here in the majors. It is consistency. We know Blake Reynolds can do that. And we've seen that Dallas Pataska seems to have the ability to do that. So,
I'm going to argue with
I'm rubbing my hands together.
I'm going to argue a little bit. Speed has never been Pataska's problem. The learning, getting it to the end is something that sometimes will bite him.
By the end of last season, though,
pretty good though. Yeah.
I think he figured things out.
I agree.
Guys, the GT3s, we haven't checked in with them recently, but Trevor Clement and Patrick Fleming still riding together here. Things tightening up just a bit. they're still on the hunt for Scott Corbin. It seems like they have been. They've been chasing him since the end of the first lap, basically. They'll get close sometimes down here in the twisty bits, but I suspect Scott Corbin's got that machine leaned out, fellas, and that wing maybe not quite as high in the air as Trevor Clement, Patrick Fleming right behind him, because when he gets out on the straightaways and on that front stretch there through the tri-oval, he is bad fast.
Well, and that brings up an interesting point, is the difference in setup philosophies between the teams. Obviously, they share them a lot between drivers, but you're seeing here, Kinetic versus Alliance seem to have taken different routes here, Sean.
I mean, this is the best example of it, at least in the GT3 field that I can find right now. Again, that chase on Corbin, that's been going on for 29 laps, and they have not been able to get around him. Corbin's had none of it. Again, he just pulls away. That Merc pulls away when he hits the straight.
As we ride. Go ahead.
Another thing about team racing is not only they have to decide on the setups, but in these multi-class races, they have to decide if they're going to race the same car or not.
This is true. Yeah. Well, and there's multiple makes within each class, too. Yeah. And Travis Worling from the GT3 class comes in pits from second place. The unorthodox driver.
Worling picked up a win in the season opener last round, so that was a different car. I think they opened with that Nissan Audi combination, so they're not quite going with the same race that we had opening season 2018.
Yeah, last season, not last round. But I'm a little sad that we don't see them here again, because that was a fun time.
They are coming back. They're just going to be at a different Florida track.
Yes, which I think will be a lot tougher than this one, that's for sure.
Oh, boy. The other Florida track just south of here.
Well, and we discovered, Sean, they cannot go until dark for those. So,
boy.
Well, they can. It just
that'd be awful mean to the Audi drivers. GTE leader comes on in. This is German Afanador and Paul Darling. Clark Archer stays out. Interesting. Bennett passes it up. No, Bennett is in.
Yeah, it just took him a long time to get there.
Tom Stanley is going to stay out. There's one of our top runners in the GT3s returning back out. Travis Worling takes the 90 to the end of the cones and gets it going once again. And Sean, you were watching this stop and found something interesting.
Well, just something that we should explain to everyone. So unlike that Daytona prototype where those tires are free, the GT3 totally different. You got to take your fuel first, and then you get your tires. And what was that worth? Well, the bogey time on that. Go ahead,
Can we look at a Fander's car in pit lane? He's up on the jacks, and his real reels were actually spinning. He's still there.
So we've seen this in some of the other series, such as the Autobahn series, where the GTEs also have to take extra time, like Sean was just explaining, to take tires. And it looks like maybe we'll see some split strategy in terms of who takes them when. Afanador elects to do it now.
This is very interesting. This is weird. I've never seen a car up on the air jacks and actually in gear. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. No, you can do that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's not like real life where they have to stop them so that that would be interesting if they took that route, iRacing. Actually, I kind of would encourage that. Clark Archer takes his pit stop in his Ferrari. Cost you extra time if you don't stop your wheels and get on the brakes. Yeah, iRacing, get on that one.
Yeah.
One of the riding shotgun drivers.
I thought he had like those spinning hubcaps for a while, you know?
Oh, no. Mention those again and we put you in timeout. So.
Oh, I love those. Okay.
Paul Darling racing for Northwind Puffin Racing. Puffin Racing is a team that we've seen in other series as well. Glad to see them show up here in the majors. Currently sits in 9th after his stop.
This report that Blake Reynolds was able to get around Sam Adams, so Reynolds back up into third in that prototype class now.
Curiously, though,
nearly 5.8 seconds
back.
Yeah.
Couple of Alliance drivers in the pits right together there. Fleming and Trevor Clement both come in together.
This is more of our GT3 cars taking their scheduled stops. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, but obviously because we are on IESN, these drivers have had to legitify any sponsors that they have on the cars. And I don't know if you saw, but Skull Candy is on Alliance's cars. And I've talked to their head of the team, Jason Fleischle. That's actually a sponsor for them. They've got
outstanding.
They've got Skull Candy behind them. That is amazing stuff.
Boy, I've got an old pair of Skull Candy earbuds that I've been using forever, to be honest with you.
Talk to Jason.
They were
Talk to Jason.
They were hand-me-downs for my son.
Well, speaking of liveries, then can we look at the GTE leader? This is Clark Archer. Hopefully, I have the same paint scheme as everyone should. Oh, that's pretty. Now, I'm going to take a shot at my rods and cones here. That's orange. Is that Ferrari orange?
You got it.
All right.
Now, I'm not sure why he doesn't have the right-hand shotgun paint scheme on the car. We got a problem in turn one. Scott Corbin with problems losing his Mercedes coming into the first corner.
Wow, that's going to be just crippling for Scott.
And
boy, he just locks him up.
Yeah. But
Right-
the good
right
news
there.
is he didn't lose too much time because he kept it out of the wall. No damage here. Ooh, but those tires are not going to be happy.
Yeah, he's fresh off that stop. I mean, he was literally just finished his outlap.
That's Paul Darling, second to the scene. Did a good job of getting around him.
Absolutely. That's all of our pit stops now done in all three classes. Real quick, let's run you through the top five in each of them. Dallas Pataska up back to the front. Eric Smith has not dropped off of him, so looks like he might be able to do his fuel strategy thing again. He sits in second place. They're being chased by Blake Reynolds, who's still about 5.5 seconds back. He's gained a little bit since we last looked. Sam Adams is staying in touch with the current champion. Sam running the number 912 in the DPs. Started this race in second, though, so he's lost some ground. And then rounding out the top five in the DPs is Lance Nasir. Bill?
Paul Darling leading in the GTEs by 6.1 second over Clark Archer. It's about another 6 seconds back to Brian Bennett. So there's your top three. We're going to go down to Tom Stanley. He's going to be in the fourth in class. He's in a battle with Vincent Lebert, the Canadian driver. But really, before I throw it over to Sean, full disclosure, we got to talk about the driver that is eighth in class, car 261. He took tires. That's German Afander, way back there. But he'll be up the charts here in a while when everyone else takes that next pit stop.
Okay, so while you guys are running that down, we actually had a little bit developing there. So Travis Warling is back to the lead. Alex Saunders came out of the pit right behind him, now 2.4 seconds back. So that gap is spread out just a bit after the pit stop for those two. And Jimbo Pfeiffer still, unfortunately, just a little bit further now as he's closing on almost 7 seconds, really losing touch with the two up front here.
And with that, we are just about halfway through this race. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the final half of round one here of the Daytona 2.4 in the majors. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. You're watching the Daytona 2.4 here on IESN. And right now, the first round in the 2019 majors is being led by Dallas Pataska in the DPs, Paul Darling in the GTEs, and Travis Warling in the GT3s. On screen, for those of you who were watching during the break, you may have seen Pataska and Smith actually got pretty close down into turn one just this lap, almost making contact. But Eric, last set before the pit stops, we saw that he was not interested in passing him, and I suspect that's going to be the same deal again this time.
Yeah, I think so. It looks competitive, but it really isn't, although they did get really close. There was almost a mistake. They almost made contact. The interval that I want to talk about for all of you soldiers in suits, clipboard army, I'm going to give you a number here. This is 27 seconds right now between Paul Darling and, well, you know where I'm going to go with this one, German Fanador. Fanador, there, thank you. Now, those were the two guys who were nose to tail before they took the pit stop. Fanador took tires. So we'll see if he can able to close the gap. Right now, Fanador is fourth in class.
Yeah, and it seems like Fanador is making inroads. He just overtook Tom Stanley as they were heading around the oval. And next up for him is a long ways up. Brian Bennett is a whole 15 seconds. Meanwhile, we got some action down in the GT3s.
Boy, we do it at a real good time here as they hop back up on to the speedway here. And Patrick Fleming having to really hold off Dick Mueller, who's just filling up the mirror at the moment. Now, all these guys are 4 and 5 laps back out after their pit stops and have found themselves in a really, really good battle here. This is, again, for P4, and 3 cars starting to ratchet it up a little bit as we hit the 1 hour. You know, we start to get close to this 1 hour to go mark, Joe. We know that these cars can get about 30 laps right now. I estimate there's probably about 45 laps left. So they're going to race hard here, set up for that last and final pit stop before they can make a run to the finish.
Riding on board with Trevor, just behind the likes of Dick Mueller. I think he's going to make a serious attempt at this pass. He goes high. Dick stays down low as they come towards turn 1. And it looks like that black and white car much deeper on the brakes than the yellow Alliance machine. So I have to work on it another time.
Boy,
takes another peek down into the International Horseshoe.
Yeah.
He's not waiting around. And once again, Alliance having a major presence, being flanked by 2 of their cars within the same class, cannot be comfortable for Mule.
He's got to probably feel a little ganged up on at the moment. But listen, he's holding his own. You'll notice here, going into these turns, he really sends it in there and jams on the brakes.
And that brings up something we haven't talked a whole lot about. It is the difference between the makes of cars and how they drive differently. And between the Audi and the Mercedes, are we really noticing much like we did with the GTE cars? Is one kind of more dominant here today?
I'm afraid so. I'm afraid that Merc is just got a little bit more grunt here on the top end than that Audi does. Our closest Audi at the moment in the GT3 field, well, that's going to be, you got to go all the way back to P9 in class. That's going to be Jeffrey Grosotto.
Meanwhile, we got a pass happening on screen. Maybe Trevor had a little bit of a run on Mueller. This time, he is much closer, actually up beside him as they hit the tri-oval, but the shorter line for Dick means that he can go a little bit, down deep into that corner.
Yeah, and again, he does that. I've been watching him for several laps now. He does that every lap, and boy, that car got awful squirrely there at the end when he finally, got the brakes settled.
Trevor trying to square off the International Horseshoe. Sometimes we can see passes into the Western Horseshoe. Is that what maybe he's attempting? He's awful close behind, but not close enough by the time they get to the brakes yet again. And all this back and forth between them has meant that his teammate Fleming up ahead is starting to pull away. He's got about a 1.5 second gap.
A little bit. Yeah, he is starting to kind of creep away from the battle. He's got a ways to go to catch Jimbo Pfeiffer, though, who is holding on to that P3 spot still. It's a full 6.6 seconds up to him.
Got a little bit of a battle happening in the DPs right now. Ryan Worley. Oh, and battle on screen, though.
Yeah, well, they're going back at it, Joe. Clement's finally going to get it.
Brave stuff into the bus stop chicane, but can he pull away? He was struggling to use straight line speed at this very portion of the circuit. Dick Mueller, still within the slipstream, starts to regain on him. They come off the high banking of turn 4 here on the Daytona Oval, but it looks like Mueller starts to stall out. I don't think he's going to be able to get a try unless he once again sends it in deep down into turn 1. Trevor doesn't cover him off, but he's not going to do it.
Yeah, Dick took it a little easy that time. He did not get it in there near as hot as he had been previously.
Back up in that battle for 8th in the DPs. Ryan Worley has started to pull away from Steve Driscoll, but that's been helped a little bit by traffic. The Elite West driver scything his way through. And these sports cars are very appropriate for Ryan. He's been a race fan for as long as he can remember, and I think that was helped along by apparently the fact that his dad crewed for a GT1 car in SCCA. So sports car racing runs in his family.
And I'll tell you what, Joe, when you come up in a racing family, you never get it out of your blood. So I can attest to that for sure.
I can only imagine. Wow, look at him have to deal with this traffic. That was Adam Lindgren. They went by. Driscoll disposes of him quickly. He is hustling to try and stay with Ryan Worley. Worley separates them once again. Brian McGreevy in the GT3 class now between them.
Rob Gall back in the pits here, guys.
He was our earliest pitter the first time and earliest the second time. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just identifying him. The team, Dog Bear Red there.
Back up to our lead in the DPs. Ooh, Pataska is starting to pull a gap. It is now 1.5 back to Eric Smith. I don't think he can save fuel in the draft from that far behind.
Oh, that was a moment.
Pataska
was coming in hot on Fleming there, Joe.
And Dick Mueller wound up spinning the car. You could see him in the background. Now, it was a completely separate incident. It looked like he sent it through the grass.
Yeah, he did. He missed his entry, Joe. Just plain and simple missed it. Watch right here on the replay.
It's that black and white Mercedes right there, the number 76. Oh, he was on the... Oh, I think he was put off by the GTE car to his outside. That was one of our ride-in shotgun cars, Clark.
Oh, Sam Adams, when you come back, racing 4th in class, almost lost it. This was a close one, as he just goes on to, I think he was just going on to the onto the oval section here, out of that final corner. He's working away around a lapped car.
This is Scott Corbin.
Yeah, he's been chasing Blake Reynolds for a long time, and he didn't want to lose any ground here, so he tries to go around the outside, and I thought it was going to be worse than it was. Woo! Oh, that's some nice camera work. And he gets going again.
Yep, I guess Scott Corbin didn't get the memo from Sam Adams that the DPs are coming. So,
jeez.
This time he's going to be able to get on by.
Paul Revere
I'm
reference.
that one
was good. That was good.
I figured Revolutionary War, it's close enough, right?
That's good, yeah.
He gets the car going and gets around that pack of GT cars. We're almost to an hour to go That magic number we're looking for on the DPs is 45 minutes left or thereabouts for them to make it on a two-stop strategy. Ooh, that battle for P8 is heating up once again in the prototypes. Worley and Driscoll. They're dealing with yet more traffic in the form of Matthew Thunhorst pulls out of the way. How about Thunhorst, though? Remember, we saw him go straight to the back of the GTEs. He's currently in 9th.
Yeah, well, remember, he was back there in the GT3s having a fight with those guys at the beginning of the race. And, yeah, I'd say he's rebounded pretty well here at this point, Joe.
I'd be proud of that if I were him. See, he lets the likes of Driscoll and Worley continue their battle on through, but Driscoll with a big slide coming through the Western Horseshoe and gathers it back together. Costs him quite a bit of time on Ryan. Well, that battle was hot until that happened. Some of the battles that were close in the GT classes included the GT3 lead, but that seems to have really broken up. Worley and Saunders are not very close together.
Here's what I want to tell you about that. What Worley is doing at the moment is pretty cool. He is actually holding off Jimmy Hume and Chuck Chambliss. Been doing it for several laps now. They've got nothing for him. They'll get right up to the rear wing and doing a bit of an inspection on that rear bumper, and then there's no getting around him. Worling is just nailing it at the moment, guys. Furious pace.
And we should clarify why we bring this up. Hume and Chambliss are not in the GT3 class. They're in the faster GTE class, but the cars are so close that it looks like they're overlapping slightly with the GT3s. Hume trying. He wants to get by. He's got to be frustrated. Whirling probably isn't so happy about this either. He's going to let one through, but if he gets held up, I don't think he's going to sit behind.
This is 3 laps in the making, though, Joe. Again, you're right. Whirling probably is a little frustrated at the moment. He'd probably rather not have to try and race these guys.
And this next one is actually, this is a battle for, well, overall position here, right?
Yeah, overall position, just not within class.
Right.
And they're not done with it. Brian Grandin is behind them as well. He's all the way behind Sonia.
Well, that was one of those situations, oh my goodness.
Yes.
Where you don't get the blue flag. What fantastic thing. There goes Eric Smith around also.
Smith still holding on to the back of the 023.
And look what that did. Here comes Alex Saunders, Sean. All of that nonsense brought him right into the mix.
Yeah, well, it obviously slowed Travis down just a little bit, and boy, just when you thought Travis was starting to run away a little bit, no. Here comes Alex Saunders. Alex Saunders of hefty I rating, by the way, gentlemen. That's a 62.96. That's they don't give those away. You earn those.
What's our strength? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I called a whole season of him in the Lionheart, where he was dominant over there, winning in the Retro Series. Very, very tough.
What's our strength of field here today, Sean?
It is 2466.
Okay, so not outrageously high then.
Higher than mine.
I guess it's a matter of perspective as we watch Saunders continue to give chase on Travis Worling.
Ben Zahner had a spin in the 93. He is parked out there. He's in dangerous position. Yeah, let's see if he's still
looks like he
sitting
caught
there.
the wall pretty hard.
Yeah, he had visions of driving that thing back, and then he just couldn't find a spot to pull down.
This is for the Elite West team. He's currently in last in the GT3s.
I'm going to give him a tip of the hat, though. Once the car was out here, he let it sit there. He didn't bring it down in the traffic. Maybe he couldn't.
He took a tow, so I think it was stuck there. I'm pretty sure he has not taken his spare car, so I don't think that'll be a DNF, which, interesting stat for you guys, we have not had a DNF yet. We've got all 51 starters still out there.
Amazing. We talked about it in the break. I'm gonna say it. Are they a little too well behaved? We had a spinner right in front of Rob Gall. Chambliss with trouble, and
and did something happen to Adams again? In the background, this looks like the old tires on that DP did not agree with how much he applied the throttle. Look at him sawing at the wheel, Sean.
He's giving it a workout, isn't he? Man, what a save. That was really a good job. He's still sawing on it, coming out of the exit there. Really? Boy, there just must be nothing left.
To tell you the incredible pace of the top guys, Sam Adams is still in fourth. Lance Nassir was not able to pass him with that error. So he did not lose a spot. Probably took a few notes for himself, though, on how not to drive the Western Horseshoe. Meanwhile, we're looking at our top two in the DPs. Pataska still leading Smith, and there has been no change. We're not missing any sort of battle up here. We still believe the 32 is saving fuel behind that red, white, and black Wyvern car.
Smith went 2 laps farther the first stint. If he can do that again, that's 4 laps. That starts to add up, well, obviously, as Captain Obvious behind the mic here. But when it comes to that final pit stop, he'll be able to take a little bit less. And as evenly paced as Pataska and Smith are, and I think they are evenly paced, that could be the difference.
I think you're good, Bill, because that's about the safest math we're allowed to do here on air. So.
Oh, you should have heard Sean try to work a 24-hour clock. It was hilarious.
No comment.
So we're riding on the nose there of our second place driver. We haven't checked in on our GTE leaders in a while. Darling, a big gap ahead of Clark Archer. I mean, this is one of the biggest gaps we've seen. 11 seconds between first and second place.
And then my dad would talk about the early peel, late reveal. So I got to tell you that gap back to German Afanador. It's still 26 seconds. He had it down to 24, then got a horrible traffic. And that cost him about 2 seconds. So I'm not so sure if these tires, if he has new tires, it's not showing up in lap times.
He might regret that decision, it seems, German Afanador. Now, to be fair, he was 15 seconds behind the car ahead before, which is Bennett. It is now 10 seconds. So he's gained some.
Yeah, well, being faster than Bennett is not his concern. He needs to.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the inroads he needs for the strategy to work. Ooh, we got to get back to 8th in the DPs once again because Driscoll and Worley won't let us step away. And as they come up to turn 1, I think that was a lift from Steve, though. Behind them, is that a battle for position?
Now that's Richie Hearn. He's well back. Well, it is a battle, I guess, for position, but it's 40 seconds.
Well, not in the same class, though.
Yeah.
Hey, you're the one that's got to answer to him, Soups.
Yes.
Right on board with Driscoll, coming out of the International Horseshoe, still trailing behind Ryan Worley.
I had the pleasure of having Richie Hearn sit next to me in the Lionheart IndyCar Series that we will be picking up for another season on Wednesday nights here on GSRC. That'll be on the IESN network as well.
Uh-oh, Mark Herzog had to take the safe way out of the bus stop, guys. He was in the midst of a lot of traffic. This is going to cost Mark.
He's currently 14th in the DPs, and yeah, is this the first time we've seen someone fully blow the bus stop chicane?
First time I've witnessed it, yeah, but he had a lot of traffic, and it's this battle going on at the top of the GT3 field that he found himself coming up on.
Yeah, he didn't feel safe trying to turn into that corner side by side.
No, he was right next to Saunders there. And it's still a whale of a fight. Like I said, I mean, Saunders all over the rear deck there of Travis Worling, and they've been fighting through this traffic. And I just keep thinking it's like a matter of when, but Travis is just so fast on the straightaways that really what we saw before, what trouble the GTEs had trying to get around him.
Sean, unlike the battle that I've been watching between Pataska and Smith, I think your battle is a little more legitimate here, Worling and Saunders. I think that Alex wants that spot.
I think he wants it, Sue, but I wish him a lot. I wish him a lot of luck getting it again. Worling has done something to that car. We have a fuel additive in there or something, but that thing is a rocket ship.
Fuel additive is called talent, Sean. That is.
Oh, okay.
Worling is just darn fast today, I think. Much to the ire of poor Chambliss and Grandin. So now under an hour to go. You know, the interesting thing, when we saw Rob Gall already take 2 stops, he's currently sitting in 12th. He's got to take 1 more. Where did he start this race? He started from 14th. So he is on the net gain. He has 1 more stop to go, but so does everybody else. So this one, I think this actually might work out decently well for Rob.
So you're saying keep an eye on him then?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a lap down.
He is quite a ways behind, though, from the next car ahead, Ross Banfield. About 30 seconds back. Certainly committed to that strategy. There's Banfield, another of those V-Apex drivers showing up as he weaves his way through that bus stop chicane, really taking some curve. Still waiting for this next set of stops to begin. We got what we expect to be a few more minutes, and it'll start to give us an idea of who can make it to the finish in the DPs on just the 1 more stop.
Let me give you a driver to keep an eye on as we look at Smith there. Right behind him, you saw Blake Reynolds. That interval now, 4.2. That's the smallest that has been in quite a while. Blake's beginning to close that gap.
That's Pataska coming in.
There you go.
Seriously doubt he'll be able to make it to the finish from here. I mean, he could maybe try to save some fuel, but to me, I'm reading this now that he's got to commit to a 3-stopper.
Okay, remember
Marcus.
Smith?
Sorry, guys. Marcus Tracy just had a big spin in P15 there in the DPs. It happened right in front of traffic. Trevor Clement coming through. Brian Bennett was coming through at the moment.
Where exactly did this one happen? I'm trying to find it myself.
Well, we got on the replay right here. But he is going to spin down in the horseshoe.
We were looking at the bus stop there.
I led us down a wrong road there, Joe. My bad. Sorry.
I think it was just a little while ago is the issue. So Michael Thompson comes in also with an early stop for Elite West. Now, Elite West also has another new driver, if I'm not mistaken. This one is popular with the fans. The number 629, Kevin O'Keefe, has moved over to join a team. Currently running in 6th position.
We haven't had to ask the question yet.
What's that?
No, it's why me? Rutgers Kev, as he's known in sim racing circles, popular streamer. As I'd say, this has been a relatively calm race for him. I think he'll have that.
Streaming right now on Twitch.
Adams heads in.
I got some interesting news for you. Let's go to Eric Smith. I talked about that gap between Smith and Reynolds. How about 1.5 seconds?
Oh, was it traffic or did he make an error? What?
Blake is coming. I think it's a little combination. I think it's traffic, and now he's going to, as Smith has to deal with Casey Drake. So Smith has Drake and Blake right behind him.
Right on board with our current champion. A number of drivers are now coming in. Callisto is in. Nasir is coming in. O'Keefe has come into the pits. Worley as well. All the drivers who are trying to stretch it as far as they can go have found the limit, and it is not within 45 minutes.
Boy, I don't know how often we do a race where we don't mention Lionel Callisto more often. Having a nice, quiet fifth-place performance.
Yeah.
Former champion.
Little Train's just, it has been I'm not used, no choo-choo, nothing. It's been very quiet.
He's chugging along.
Chugging along.
See, he's back out on track now. I can report that Smith is still going. He has not come in. And
Reynolds does. So this will be interesting with Reynolds coming in and only a second and a half behind Smith. It'd be interesting to see how close he comes to Pataska.
So can Smith make it? Because Reynolds is the last of them besides Smith to take a stop. And Smith has to make another 7 minutes here. I did math. I did a sin.
Yeah, I was hoping you would do that. I was trying to figure it out as well, and I was getting a bit confused. Pataska going by pit entrance now.
Reynolds is still stationary, and
Rolling.
Pataska's got him. I think.
Yeah, but all things considered, he can see him. That gap, about just under 1.5 seconds.
It is,
8 or 9 car lengths. Yeah, this is not bad.
You have to admit that is
6.5 back earlier. Yeah.
And here's what's fascinating about the level of skill and talent and strategy needed at the top of the top split, Bill. It seems like that gap that he's only just now whittled down was all caused by those opening laps where he had to take avoiding action.
Yep.
That was where he first started to fall behind.
I agree. I felt it had to be frustrating for him because he's holding station 5.5 seconds, 4 to 5 to 6 seconds behind, running the same lap times. Just couldn't make up any ground. Now he is within. Now he's got it under a second.
For it to take nearly an entire race for Blake Reynolds to catch someone, that person has to be fast.
And the leader is in.
And Smith is in. Ooh. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to make it to the end of this thing then.
I'd say we've been given a pretty good indicator here so far.
But the question is,
guys,
right, how splashy is your splash and go going to have to be?
That's true. That's true. Eric saved a whole lot more. And Pataska is coming across the line right now. Smith is starting to pull out. Pataska's past him. Reynolds has passed him. It was a long stop. Eric Smith going to come out in third. And all this, the top three in the DPs happening a whole 10 seconds ahead of fourth place Steve Driscoll.
And again, we don't know if Reynolds or Smith or even Pataska, for that matter, filled it all the way up to the brim. They could have short filled thinking, we'll just take a little more next time. So we honestly have no clue until that final stop.
Now, wait a minute. I made a mistake here. Driscoll hasn't pitted his second time, has he? I thought that Reynolds was the last other than Smith, and Driscoll is still out there. Banfield also was. He just pitted.
This action on screen, Joe, pretty hot. Mark Schindel, who's been fighting it out with Dick Mueller, kind of gets messed up there a little bit with the entry of Jeffrey Gorzato, and rides right up on Gorzato, almost gets into that Audi, and just behind him, well, here comes Kevin O'Keefe working his way through now.
Yeah, this is what we expected more of this race, is a lot of drivers having to deal with frustrating traffic, and Schindel trying to duck to the inside manages to get by Gorzato.
Yeah, well, Schindel's got to be pretty upset here at the moment. I mean, he goes from being passed by Dick Mueller here about 2 laps ago to fighting with him for that position, and is now all of a sudden lost touch. Lost touch big time. Look at that.
Pass for the lead in the DPs right now as they come into turn one. Blake Reynolds already not waiting around, challenging the long way around of turn one. It doesn't happen, but he's giving Dallas Pataska something to think about.
All right, Sean, I got a little racing going on in this upper class here.
Yeah.
The attitudes have changed a bit for these boys now.
And Smith is not showing signs of catching them. He's still about 1.5 seconds back.
Had to work his way around Jimmy Hume. Now he has clear space in front of him.
Up onto the oval. All right, Blake Reynolds used the slipstream last time. What about coming down to the backstretch? Dan Garber going to stay low, let both of these DPs by. Is he going to use the slipstream to try and make a move? He's closing in. Gets smaller and smaller, but he lifts. So no attempt this time. Now, apparently something happened with Taylor. Trying to see. Harry Taylor in the GTEs finds himself on pit lane.
Oh, there it is.
That was a hard hit, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Turn 4. Did he get some help from one of these Alliance drivers? I'm not sure who that is.
Yep.
Oh, he gets together with Paul Slavonic.
Slavonic jerked the car over, though. It looked like maybe he had a hardware failure or something. We're going to watch it from above, and when we come back, we had a pass for the lead in the DPs that we'll need to go back to as well. Yeah, that was very bizarre. Maybe netcode and the car bobbled from a contact that didn't actually happen, because Slavonic's not the type to just run his car into someone. Meanwhile, as we come back live, Dallas Pataska couldn't hold him off twice. It was up on the high side. There you see on the replay that this time Reynolds got it done.
Yeah, there was no stopping Reynolds there. He had a great run out of the bus stop and had the momentum, took it around the top side. But all that little play has let Smith right into, so it's a 3-car battle.
Everybody knows it's pretty hard to break out when you've got Reynolds wrapped around the outside. So
I knew it was. I just didn't. I could feel it coming.
Sitting this one out also.
Reynolds. Blake Reynolds, now our leader. Dallas Pataska second, and Eric Smith in third in your DPs. And
Driscoll in and out of the pits there real quick, Joe. Quick.
And our thoughts are Driscoll cannot go the distance.
I think he can, though. That's 45 minutes.
Okay.
And he's the only one
right.
that have made it 2 stops this long. Ooh, the plot thickens.
Yeah, and I think he's close enough where he'll jump the guys. He's close enough that he'll inherit the lead.
And Houston Hamer did pit just now his second time, so he also made it 45 minutes, but he is currently last in class in the DPs.
New driver racing for Shotgun Racing on one of their 3 teams. Either it's the Outlaws or the Rangers or the Desperados. Yeah.
That's the Desperado team there.
All right. Bless them for not naming them green, blue, and pink. Thank you. Somebody's listening to me.
I think it's because Adam's on that team, and he's probably tired of hearing you complain about that. Oh, so as Dallas Pataska for Wyvern racing one of the other riding shotgun cars, the Outlaw team, Blake Reynolds for them, currently leading by less than a car length. And they've got, and now Eric Smith has fully caught them. Ooh, this is going to get very interesting.
I think it's all going to come down to who has to stay in the pit lane longer for that splash and go. And I honestly have no clue. My guess would be that Smith would have the advantage. He's had the best fuel mileage out of all these guys.
Easily the advantage over these two. But we don't know what Driscoll's got over them. He's a minute behind. Is that close enough as they break once again for turn 1? And it has gone from a 2-car fight to a 3. And as we watch this, let's stay with this battle. But Sean, you've found something with Jimbo?
Man, yeah, well, poor Jimbo's having a fight with Terry Taylor, who just blew the bus stop because he almost got into the back of Jimbo Pfeiffer. Here's Jimbo trying to hang on to P3, and he's having a fight with a car that, frankly, off pace right now for poor Terry and in the GTE class. And, well, I think Terry has finally decided to back it off just a little bit, maybe give Jimbo some space. Again, Jimbo just trying to hang on to third and keep Patrick Fleming in his mirror. But, boy, Terry Taylor made it very, very tough on him here these last several laps.
Still on board with Blake Reynolds to look back at Dallas Pataska. We may have lost Challenger, but I think we have our new rivalry.
Yep.
I like that choice of wood. It almost looks like a bowling lane.
Any chance at identifying what type of wood it is?
Maybe a maple. Maybe a fine maple.
I think that's a nice maple. That's a hardwood. Yep.
We'll have to ask Adam again on that one.
They don't use turtle wax. They use pledge.
Look at these, all 3 in a line. And, it's starting to look like Dallas is not interested in challenging him. Maybe he's starting to save fuel behind Blake.
Yeah, they're all 3 in a line, but the guy who's at the back is Smith, and he's been following somebody for this entire race.
Oh.
I don't know. He was out in front for a little while.
They're coming up on Sam Scott. Oh, I thought he had an incident. He's just a little bit slow into the corner. Excuse me. But he could play a role in these 3 because they've caught him in the infield. We haven't seen the traffic play too much of a factor in the fights. It's separated drivers a little bit, but I don't think we've really seen anybody lose out too badly so far.
Keep going back to the GTEs, and Paul Darling comfortably out in front by 12 seconds, but I keep looking back there. We got to remember about German Afanador. About 25 seconds back.
But has he
if
been
I'm
gaining
Darling
on
at this,
Darling, though?
right, here's the point, though. If I'm Darling now, I don't see tires as an option. I mean, it's pointless. So I think he'll just come in and, I don't know.
Well, a German wouldn't be taking them, though, so some of that time could be gained back.
Well, no, assuming Afanador already took his tires. That's why he's so far back.
But I guess, it'd be a shorter stint for Darling on fresh tires. So.
Right.
Missed a trick, maybe.
If you're going to take tires, you're not going to take it on your splash and go or your second stop.
Pataska's taking the lead. Pataska is up ahead of Blake Reynolds, and that looked like he handed it over. I wonder if the riding shotgun guys have someone listening to the broadcast. Because that happened exactly 1 lap after we mentioned it.
Yeah.
Lifts, and he lets 1 through and 2 through.
Adam's not hiding in the booth or something, is he?
No, I don't see him. Our director's speaking ill of Adam. We'll let those 2 settle that one out later. Down to 40 minutes to go. Are we going to see some trickery here at the end of the race? Let's jump down to the GT3s who have a battle going on.
Yeah. Well, these 3 are still locked up together. Dick Mueller, Mark Schindel, Kevin Hill. And it hasn't been a battle of back and forth, but every time the traffic comes through, it's been pretty hairy for these guys. But up front, it's still Warling and Saunders leading the way in the GT3s. Because they've got their own little battle on. I think I figured out what Soup was on to earlier of Saunders. He's just waiting.
Yeah, I think so too.
Patient waiting game at this point. But again, Warling's car is still exceptionally fast, so I bet he's going to have to select his move very carefully and then keep it in front.
I watched Saunders run him down and then just kind of give up. There's one more stop for both of them, but my gut tells me that Saunders has got something left in reserve.
Whenever a driver tries to get cute, though, Bill, I always start to wonder that can so easily backfire. Some traffic in the wrong place at the wrong time. Alex has got to be careful. Oh, and Blake takes his third stop. So Blake not trying to save fuel with that move that we saw, just getting behind them.
Yeah, and this may be a case of feeling confident about what he's got. Let's go out there, get away from those guys, run some hot laps. They're not paying attention to me. When they come in, surprise!
Yeah, well, and the good news is that Steve Driscoll did not catch him. So doesn't have to worry about Steve being the only one we think other than last place Houston Hamer being able to go on 2 stops. So Pataska and Smith are left on their own. Do they react, though? And I'm pretty certain that both Wyvern and V Apex have people up on the box telling them what's going on. In fact, I know Wyvern has people.
27 seconds between the leader, Dallas Pataska, back to Blake Reynolds, racing 5th right now.
They stay out. So they might still be thinking they could get to the end here. They overtake the lapped car of Brian McGreevy easily through turn 1. And Rob Gall has taken his 3rd stop. So he will be done and back out.
And speaking of stops, we had a domino fall in the GT3s right before Gall. Jimbo Pfeiffer came in for his last and final stop, Joe. He's the first. Again, he was running P3, now slots back in P12 after that stop.
Let's see, how far is he behind Warling, though? Because when he came in, I believe it was, about 5 seconds between them?
Right, it was, and now that dropped it to that's 49 seconds gap.
Yeah.
His stop was the bogey time pole to pole there, 43 and a half seconds.
All right. So is that going to be enough to give him an advantage to allow him to maybe sneak a win here? I don't think we've seen Jimbo take a win in the majors before, have we?
I don't remember.
If it was, it had to have been back when it was still the Pacific Majors, or back when it was still just the Pacific Club.
Yeah.
The Northwest
Club.
Majors,
the Northwest
right.
Majors, yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, someone locking them up there. Heading
Such
on
great
the oval.
history in this series.
It continues to grow bigger every season. Next season, they're bringing in the planets, I think.
What's the name of the drivers coming in for that one, Bill?
I don't know. I haven't studied up on them, but
Well, I've heard Jupiter. I've heard Jupiter's got some awful fast guys over there, so I'd be concerned.
they know the downforce on Jupiter. I know that. Hey, I got to talk about this interval here. German. I'm going to call him the Matador. A Fanador. The Matador. I
like that.
He's got it down to 24.1. So he's coming now. That's the interval between him and Darling.
Unfortunately, not from Club Iberia. He hails from Georgia. That would have been beautiful, though.
Or at least he could hail from Germany.
I see. I was trying to figure out in my brain why Matadors were related to Germany. And then...
Come on, guys. This isn't that long of an endurance race.
Still got 34 minutes to go, too. And a lot of action we expect to happen. Bob Beltrami, the Salami, comes in for his final stop in the DPs. So we've got Reynolds, Gall, and Beltrami, the three so far who have taken a third stop. The GTEs Adam Lindgren, side-by-side battle with Sam Scott. This is for P9. Up on the outside, he's going to have to go the long way around of Adam Lindgren as they work their way through the tri-oval. Lindgren is early on the brakes. This might actually work as Sam Scott brings it down to the apex, put him up into P9.
Nevertheless, Lindgren having a good run up 5 spots.
Looks
Sam
like
Scott Racing, about where he started.
Looks like we got some help from the Peanut Gallery on some stats. Jimbo has had 2 wins.
There you go. That's
They are
justice.
a while ago, though.
Yeah, that's only fair.
That was from the head of the Peanut Gallery, by the way, the official president of the Peanut Gallery, Mike Willett.
And I see Fleischle helping him out there, too. Brian Bennett comes in for his stop. Bennett was in 3rd in the GTEs. This will be his 2nd and final stop. And then he'll be good to go as we switch over to 3rd in the DPs. Sam Adams giving chase on Smith and Pataska. Excuse me, the 2nd in the DPs as Eric Smith chasing Pataska. Adams is currently about 9 seconds behind them. All right, the Wyvern Racing driver, who we know wasn't really saving fuel, has come in for his final stop. And that leaves just Eric Smith. He's got nobody to play with now.
Reynolds has already passed the bus stop, coming across the start-finish line right now. Pataska rolling.
It's going to be awful tight. Pataska's out into the pit lane. Reynolds is slightly behind him as they come around that corner through the S's of turn 2, down to turn 3. A little bit of traffic going to play a part. That's the likes of Sam Scott trying to stay out of the way, and I think that's all that Dallas needed for Blake Reynolds to get ahead of him.
Poor Sam. He didn't realize what he got into. Yeah, for Pataska to get in front of Reynolds.
Reverse that.
I think Reynolds had the run and just got caught up behind Scott and couldn't get it done. Nevertheless, he's in the hunt.
Paul Darling comes in from the lead of the GTEs. Clark Archer follows him. And Afanador is in. Darling's out. He did not take tires.
Yeah.
So Afanador, we expect to not take tires. So was this a strategic mistake then potentially from German? Now he will have fresher ones.
Assuming it was tires that cost him that long time, I'm pretty sure it was.
Sean, I know you were on the box for a couple GTE teams. Did the tires even out by that long into a stint for German?
Yes, under these conditions, Joe, yeah, I think so.
So we may not really have much to try and chase down Darling.
Unfortunately not. Yeah, that could be an issue.
And I think can we get a close-up of Warling here? We think we've spotted a cone on the right side of the car, we believe.
Oh, we can't. A little paint of a cone there. That's funny.
Just to distract us. It painted it on the inside of the rim. Okay, cute.
That's
Very cute,
creative.
unorthodox guys. Yeah.
You're definitely getting style points for that.
I wonder if they didn't expect us to get that one in the first race, though.
Yeah,
So,
they gotta be
those
happy
Easter eggs.
we saw that one. Yeah.
All right, so that puts Vincent Leherbier temporarily at the lead of the GTEs, but not by a whole lot. Paul Darling's only 6 seconds behind, barely. And actually, Leherbier comes in now, so he's going to hand that one over.
I know I'm numbers watching here, but I'm going to give you the interval between Smith and Pataska. It's about 23 seconds. That's what Smith will have to get in and out. He's going around one more time.
Stanley also pits behind Leherbier. You may notice the 027 on Leherbier, and any fans of racing should probably be familiar with the 27. Well, that's intentional. Herbier, being a Canadian, has chosen that in homage to Gilles Villeneuve.
Did not know that. That makes sense.
Eric Smith continues on. Sam Adams continues to chase him. Hasn't come in himself. 7 seconds behind. Oh, side-by-side action between Blake and Dallas. This could potentially be for the lead. We're not entirely sure, but Dallas holds him off for now. Take a look at the replay of that one since we only caught the end of it. And once again, it's Blake getting the run down towards the tri-oval. Now, he's pulled this off once before, but here, Bill, are two very smart drivers. Both have been sussing out what the other has been doing whenever they make this move.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why are they racing so hard here with 28 to go, remember, they are racing Eric Smith, who's on the other side of the track right now. They need to put in quick laps. They can't sit back in there and lollygag, happy to just race behind each other, because Smith is doing what he needs to do.
Yep, with a lead of about 23 seconds over Pataska and Reynolds. If he doesn't come in, they have got to hustle. Ooh, another move to the inside, potentially. Blake Reynolds takes a peek. And that one, he backs out into the bus stop. Not willing to make that risky of a move with 27 minutes to go.
And Travis Warling, Sean, doing the same thing for you. He's got to hustle because he's racing Alex Saunders, who needs to make that stop. There you go.
Got another
NFL
run.
there.
Yes.
Vincent Lherbier is down to the low side. Oh, I'm surprised that he didn't try to make a pick out of that GTE car. Blake Reynolds gave him space. Deeper onto the brakes, down to the apex. Dallas Pataska denies him for the second lap in a row.
What they can't do is fool around like this, though, because this is exactly what Eric Smith wants to have happen.
Absolutely. Now, while we watch this, I'm looking at German Afanador, Bill. Did he take tires again?
No.
Okay.
He was about. That's about where he was before, behind Darling.
Actually.
Oh,
well, yeah, because he's farther down in position than I thought he'd be. He's got a third stop marked. Did he maybe speed in the pits?
I'll bet you that's what I bet you. It
was 19 seconds, though. Meanwhile, we also have an update from Sean on the GT3 pit stops.
Well, here's your update. Alex Saunders leads this race in the GT3s, but he hasn't come in yet. In fact, he's out 33 laps now on this stint. And I wonder if, he may be setting up for that pit stop now. Now, here's the news. Travis Warling sits about just under 49 seconds behind him. Travis's bogey time on that pit stop was 49 seconds. So, I mean, this is going to be really, really close here. How splashy is Alex going to be, Soup?
More dashy than splashy? Or
Yeah, you really don't know because, Warley could have taken his lights when he came in the first time, so we'll see how it plays out.
But yeah, everybody else in the GT3s have brought their cars in for a pit stop, and we're just waiting on, our leader, Saunders, who's going to go around one more time here.
Same thing happening in the prototypes with Eric Smith staying out there.
Oh, boy, and this is really tight for Warling. Warling back here does not want to be in this battle. That's just the way they came out of the pits.
Unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast. Also want to give a quick mention, even though Paul Darling is well ahead of Clark Archer, Archer and Bennett are relatively close in a battle for P2 in the GTEs. We can't look away from them because a bad bit of traffic for Clark could bring them together.
Second and a half apart. About 18 seconds ahead of Vincent Lherbier.
Saunders pits. GT3 leader is in. Warling is in turn 4 right now. Coming off the banking. Saunders still stationary. He's got to trundle a long way down this pit lane. Oh, excuse me. No, he was coming out of 2. Warling was coming out of 2.
Saunders is rolling. Warling has no chance. Getting smoked.
Warling's stop 29.7, Saunders 19.2. Was Saunders that significantly better on his fuel, or is he short fueling it way too much? And that can't be the randomness of iRacing.
No. That's Saunders is a sharp cookie. Is that an actual thing? You're not a sharp cookie. You're a sharp tool.
I'd hate to bite that cookie.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's where it gets interesting. I'm looking at Pfeiffer and Fleming and Clement. They were all about 23 seconds. Warling was 29. I wonder if maybe Warling started to take tires and then had to turn it off when he realized that it was on.
Yeah.
Those extra 6 seconds, the only reason I could think, because there's no penalty for 6 seconds. So we switch back to Pataska, currently running fourth, leading Blake Reynolds, who's not been able to get by quite yet. And curiously, they're not making inroads on Smith. They're still 23 seconds behind.
They decided to behave a little bit. They've settled down after the craziness that was going on for, oh my goodness.
Oh, that looks like a cut course penalty to me, though, by Dallas Pataska. And Blake Reynolds finds himself getting fourth place on a silver platter potentially here.
I don't know. He's not slowing down. Oh my goodness, rhinoplasty from Reynolds as he chops the nose off of Pataska. And maybe he is serving that penalty now.
Gonna watch the replay. Well, the wooden car was the one doing the chopping, ironically.
He just got loose.
A slide on the way in.
Oh, all that minutes and minutes of racing perfectly. One mistake.
I don't think this is over, though. Traffic could bring them back together. Yeah, but the Wyvern driver, I'm sure he is kicking himself there, Bill.
Oh, it's traffic, guys.
And unfortunately, traffic's not helping Pataska now. Oh, big lockup just to make things worse. And now he's overdriving the car. That was Grandin and Saunders that he had to get by. "21 minutes left." And here's the thing about it. If Eric didn't think he could make it to the end, I would have thought he would have responded by now. He clearly something in him thinks that he can get to the end, because there's no point in him trying to go long if it's not close.
Well, unless he thinks he's a little faster than those guys and just stay out there and race a little bit. But they're on new tires, right? I mean, that's a given. So they should be quicker. I'm not sure the benefit of staying out there now, like you're saying.
Everything. Oh, as he almost makes contact with Zayner, and I think he may have, because Zayner goes off course.
Scared him into the alfalfa.
Watch the replay. I think there was a little bit of contact, but not that shoved Zayner off. I think Zayner then was just rattled. Kept it out of the barriers, thankfully. Let's go to the GT3s, though. Sean, you've got some action with Jimbo again.
Man, I'll tell you what, that pit stop for Warling really has brought things together. Jimbo Pfeiffer has caught Travis Warling, and boy, here we talked about earlier, I guess maybe about 45 minutes ago, how poor Jimbo was just trying to hang on to third. Well, guess what, guys? Not hanging on to third anymore. He's fighting for second.
As they work their way through the infield, it is Alliance versus Unorthodox. And maybe that's another team we need to start keeping our eye on this season, is Unorthodox Racing. Because they've got some high-ranking spots.
I didn't know what I was talking about when you asked me in the pre-race joke. I was obviously without a clue.
I made a note in the script for you to reference there.
Yeah, you threw it up there for me, and I didn't buy it.
I think Warling's in trouble. I really do. I think Jimbo's in pretty good shape.
Jimbo's on his he's Mercury horse, buddy.
I didn't know that they had a Mercury in iRacing.
Yeah. It's
So he
maybe
continues
I'm
to-
starting. Maybe I'm starting to get a little dingy. I obviously meant Mercedes. Yeah, that was not intended. That was a slip up. I don't know how Mercury came into that.
I thought
They
it was
were great
just
cars, though. They were. The Mercs were great.
well. See, I thought it was a phrase that I didn't know about. That maybe a horse made of mercury.
I'm not going to let that go.
Travis Warling, though, is a bit of a sitting duck, but Jimbo doesn't take it. He lifts. Mercury Horse sounds like a good band name to me, honestly, Sean.
I dig that, actually. Yeah, I may have to try and use that someday.
I was testing out the manufacturers for this race. I found that the Mercedes were really slow, and then I got in the Audis. I found they were slow too. So clearly, both the manufacturers are. There's an issue with those cars.
Still not really making any moves. Jimbo just biding his time behind the likes of Travis Warling for Unorthodox Racing, who apparently it was a merger with another team for this season. Oh, we got a pass for 8th going on here in the GT3s. An attempted one. Slavonic, who had a little bit of contact, having to fend off Andrew Oakey. Gonna watch the replay here.
Oh, I think we're on the replay. The pass has happened. Jimbo Pfeiffer takes it from Travis Warling going into the bus stop.
Take a look at this replay as well. With a little less than 20 minutes left, he finally ducks to the inside. One of the harder places, really, to get that pass done. And Warling really didn't seem interested in fighting it too hard. He lets him go. Oh, and he's actually got a run now.
Oh!
Big shove behind. We just came back in time to see it there. I almost wonder if he's got damage on the car from that. That was a hard hit.
Maybe not as hard as we thought. I don't know. The front end of that unorthodox Mercedes looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, okay. It looks a little bit lighter from this view, but from off-board, it certainly looked like he was going to turn him around. Giving that replay button a workout at the end here.
Honestly, it looked like he punted him. It really did for that, when we were live on it.
GTEs, we talked about Archer and Bennett. Bennett has closed it down from 1.5 seconds now to 0.5 seconds.
Just waiting for the right time.
And don't need to go to it, but I can report that Michael Thompson just managed he managed to get by Ross Banfield, it looks like.
Joe, my gut tells me that Eric Smith, look at this, look at that. Side by side, that orange car is going to lose the spot.
As they work their way through the S's, that's so marginal in these cars. Archer still has the inside, down into the International Horseshoe. We got a car spinning in front of them. Callisto gets it going and gets it out of the way, but it does not interrupt the fight. Now it switches back to being in the favor of Brian Bennett through the kink, and he finally keeps Archer finally passes Archer, actually.
Yeah.
In a move that takes 3 apexes to execute.
What's interesting is it's so easy to make that pass on the oval. He did it on the hardest place.
Well, we mentioned earlier that the draft not terribly powerful in the GTE, so maybe he was struggling.
Different setups, perhaps.
Work.
Yeah. Maybe he didn't have the straight line speed. To get back to my point on Eric Smith, I think he's in trouble if he cannot go the distance. I really do.
Oh, definitely. I would agree with that. And actually, Reynolds has started to catch him. It's now down to 20 seconds.
Before, when we talked about why he was staying out. And yeah, Reynolds is quicker now, and the bogey time is almost undoable now. My dad told me, when you're the prettiest girl, you don't have to worry about what kind of shoes you wear. Eric Smith was fast enough not to be tricky here. I don't know.
Well, I mean...
Then I told my dad, remember, I'm a boy, first of all. That was important, too. But
you can wear a dress.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. Smith has to avoid Mark Herzog, another Alliance driver, finding himself turned around in turn 6.
But the point is, I think Smith had the pace just to do this legitimately. I don't think he needed to steal one, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, to his credit, Adams and Nasir haven't pitted their third time either, and they're both ahead of Reynolds and Pataska.
Right.
So, I mean, if both of them can also get to the end, that will give Reynolds and Pataska a 4th and a 5th.
Honestly, I guess we should be talking about them. That's right.
So, I mean, to that, Owen Kalisto had another problem, and this one's a big one. Kalisto in turn 6 finds himself hit by Rob Gall. This started with Kalisto trying to make a pass on Clark Archer, actually, our third place driver in the GTEs, and it didn't go well. He had to brake too hard. Yeah. And that was Rob Gall who got into him. Not terribly hard, thankfully.
Joe, we were talking about Nasir. He came in. So that's one of those 3. Smith, Adams, and Nasir. Well, now there's only 2.
Yeah, Gall made the right call initially, and then looked like Little Train was trying to get the car going and had to back it up to do so. All right, another one of our ride-in shotgun drivers, Lance Nasir, returns in 5th position. Reynolds now up to 3rd. And 11 minutes to go.
There you see those guys. That Reynolds and Pataska continue to close in on Smith. I don't mean to jump you around so much, but things are getting hectic now. We saw that pass between Brian Bennett and Archer. Oh, Clark's not giving up. He hangs right on the back of Bennett.
There we see them on screen. We can stay with this battle, but I can report that both Pfeiffer and Warling are still fighting for their position, but they're still line astern right now. If they go side by side, I'll break in up onto the banking once more as we switch over to them. So I think Warling is still very much in the fight with Pfeiffer.
Oh yeah, indeed, Joe. Indeed, this is not over. Far from over. It's less than a second, and well, as we know, the straightaways can even this out here real quick. Warling pressing really hard there on the left-hander as he ran it up over the curb, loses a little bit more time to Jimbo. But remember, we talked earlier about how fast Warling's car was. This is where he finds his speed here.
So we head back to Clark and Bennett. He is trying one more time, the long way around, coming into the first corner. Going over under, maybe. He's going to try. He's got a little bit of speed. You could take a dive down into the International Horseshoe. Bennett's too smart for that. He covers him off immediately. Way off into the marbles. Clark Archer outbrakes himself. That one is not going to work. He's going to have to regroup.
That's some fun viewing right there.
The tensions are starting to mount. We saw some polite driving early on in this race. We saw some calm driving. But now drivers are fighting hard for positions, knowing that points are on the line, and who is going to take first blood in the season will give a psychological edge. Sam Adams is in. Sam Adams has pit.
Okay.
912 trundling down the lane.
Like an Agatha Christie novel, and then there was one. Eric Smith, the last car to make that final stop.
I think Smith is going to hope that it's more like a horror film. The last to survive. So Reynolds second, Pataska third. Want to note about Pataska, he's 3.3 seconds back. Once Blake Reynolds was able to shake him, Dallas is dropped back little bit by little bit. I think the number one, our current champion, has got the legs currently on his new rival, at least here today.
Reynolds is going to sit back there. I think he led for a brief second this race, but pretty much he's just been behind everybody. He's going to steal one, I think.
And that's what never ceases to amaze me is you feel like you have to count Reynolds out, and yet every race that we do, he proves us wrong. Got a bit of a battle on screen here between Matthew Thunhorst and German Afanador. German still trying to come back through after an extra pit stop as he gets a little bump from behind. Thunhorst couldn't get it woed up, way out, almost into the marbles. German Afanador somehow holds onto the car, and they're going to plug up the likes of Ryan Worley as they're still side by side into the International Horseshoe. Over under move as they bang doors. Oh, and they come together. Thunhorst turns Afanador around.
Oh boy. I'm going to go on board with Matthew Thunhorst right here, Joe.
Now, I'm not sure if German raced last season. I'd have to check my notes.
I don't think so.
If he didn't, this has been a rude introduction to this series.
Matador said ole, and he got gored.
The Apex driver gets it going once again, but he's now in 7th. Doesn't lose any more positions to anybody behind him. Liam Quinn was quite a ways back. I'm having to switch back and forth between the battle for second in GTE and the battle for second in GT3.
Yeah, Travis Warling still just, I think he's waiting. Honestly, I think he knows he's got a faster car, Joe, in certain spots of the track.
Or at least enough of a draft that he can challenge him. He's going to go up to the outside of turn 1. We've seen him do this before, but as deep as he tries to go on the brakes, it doesn't look like this is quite enough. Six minutes left on the clock now.
The GT3, Sean, they're 19 seconds behind Saunders.
Yeah.
Remember, we were looking at that battle between Saunders and Warling, and then Alex said enough of this. And gee, when I said 19 seconds, that's like 19, 20.
Yeah, he's been allowed to kind of run unabated here at this point, and it's just allowed him to continue to open it up.
Clearly, Alex Saunders, another major player here in the championship, as he will probably take max points unless he makes an incredible error in the dying stages now with only 5 minutes to go.
5 minutes for Eric Smith,
who is 16 seconds ahead of Blake Reynolds. 4 more seconds chopped off.
I always try to race faster when I'm trying to save fuel, thinking if I get there quicker, I'll make it.
Wow. Gosh, how many laps do we have left now at this point?
About 3, I think.
This could really come down.
I was just thinking about that.
This could come to if we have 3 or 2 or 4 laps left. It might be that kind of deal. Here he comes.
Slavonic. Oh.
And Smith is in as well.
We're going to watch the replay on Slavonic. Oh, it looked like another car that found themselves in the pit exit wall.
Terry Taylor. he makes contact with, Andrew Oakey, who he had been fighting with, and got in the position from Joe. Oh, and that's Oakey in the green car that went by the highlighter green. There it is. There's Oakey on the outside.
This is something that I feel like we see happen at least once every sports car race at Daytona's road course.
That's a shame.
That pit exit wall is dangerous. So Eric Smith returns in third.
He came in. It wasn't even close, Joe.
Oh, and Lance Nassir on screen. This was, it was his error initially. And, he had a whole bunch of GT cars behind. It's a comedy of errors from the spin on. Terry Taylor involved in that. Wasn't Terry the one that bumped Slavonic the lap before? So 2 laps in a row, he finds turn 1 less than desirable.
So Blake Reynolds is now comfortably the leader when Smith came to come in. It was not close come out of pit lane. Pataska got by as well. And then Eric Smith pulled into third. He's got about 2.5 seconds on Sam Adams.
And 2.5 seconds up to Pataska.
Yep.
I'm really surprised. Eric seems so confident. I would have thought that he would make it. Is that going to mean any cars can go on 2 stops? And the DPs, I see Marcus Tracy hasn't come in yet. And I think he's the only one. Blake Reynolds puts another lap on Mark Herzog. Only 9 of them left on the lead lap here in the DP field. Ryan Worley, the last of them currently. I believe it'll be white flag next time by. Paul Darling still your leader in the GTEs as well, with a huge gap over Brian Bennett. Same story with Alex Saunders in the GT3s.
We started the broadcast telling you the ones to watch. Well, none of our pole sitters out in front right now. Pataska running in second. German Afanador had trouble. He's well down. And then, of course, Travis Warling. We've seen the battle that he's been in.
Drivers have talked a lot over the break about the importance of qualifying and trying to make sure that drivers spend enough time to practice for the race. And I think from the cleanliness in the racing we've seen here today, that drivers have practiced for the race, but we're still seeing that no matter how fast you are in the qualifying, nailing that race setup, nailing that race strategy, and then having the skill to execute makes the difference at the end.
You talk about skill. It was one mistake from Dallas Pataska that probably cost him the whoa, my goodness.
Speaking of mistakes, with 1 lap to go, Blake Reynolds could yet still throw this thing away. Woo.
Careful here.
And of course, lap traffic can always take you out. If something bad happens, he's still got a couple GT cars ahead of him. Oh, and something happened to our third place in the GTEs, Clark Archer.
Stop. Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness.
Clark put it in the grass on the exit of the bus stop right there, and it just spins out of control hard into the wall.
He'll try to limp that back, but that's going to cost him several positions.
We've talked about that as well plenty of times, that when it comes to endurance racing, you just cannot count your chickens until that checkered flag flies. Blake Reynolds still has a couple more corners to go, but that was the last braking event for him. Heading through the bus stop. He's now on the banking for NASCAR 3. Heading into 4. A 6-second gap back to Dallas Pataska. Dallas gave him a run, but it was not going to be enough here. First blood indeed is going to go to our current champion, Blake Reynolds. The number 1 car finishes P1.
Gonna be Paul Darling is next as he's heading his way towards the bus stop right now. Omai's had a very quiet race. He followed around German Afandador for a long time. Some pit stops problem from Afandador, and Paul Darling has been perfect through the bus stop. Good way for Omai to start the season.
You'll get it eventually. Enough fouls.
There you go.
Paul Darling is one of the major players in the Autobahn series. And here he's showing you can't count me out even when you deepen the talent pool. Paul Darling is your winner in the GTE class here in round 1 in the 2019 majors.
Joe, Alex Saunders is gonna win this race if he could just get through the bus stop clean, gets the exit off. I think you're going to be calling Alex Saunders for the win in the GT3, but I'm telling you what, as soon as that's done, we need to go to the to second and third.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's going to get really spicy towards the end, but here comes Alex Saunders. For V Apex Racing, they introduced themselves here in the Americas with a win at Daytona. Let's go to the battle for second.
Worley's got the toe. Has he got enough to get around? They're coming around, and Worley's going to shoot to the outside. Is it enough?
Stays tight to him, tries to use that side draft, and he's got him.
Oh, baby.
Half a car length. Oof. And I'd say Worling timed that one out perfectly. A few hundred feet when he took the position.
I've been saying it all night. That car was bad fast, and it was just fast enough at the end. And that last quarter of a mile down the front stretch.
That brings us to the end of the race, but not the end of the broadcast here for round 1 of the 2019 majors. Coming up next, we have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. And during the break, you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. The first weekend of racing in the 2019 majors is now over. All three regions have had their race. And here in the Americas, well, it was Blake Reynolds taking the win in the DPs. Our current champion kicks off his defense with the best finish possible. But Dallas Pataska certainly is making him work for it. And I wouldn't doubt that Dallas could take some more wins this season and possibly be a major contender for the overall championship. Eric Smith finished in third, rounding out the podium. A newcomer showing himself to be a factor as well. Sam Adams came home in fourth despite starting on the front row, with Lance Nassier having some problems at the end. But take this into account. He started in 11th and finished fifth. Great climb. Steve Driscoll finished in sixth, with Kevin O'Keefe. Rutgers Kev goes from 7th to 7th. Lionel Kalisto. This is certainly one of the underwhelming finishes we've had from him. He takes 8th today. And Ryan Worley, our featured driver, finishes in 9th. Michael Thompson, first driver to finish a lap down, comes in 10th, with Ross Banfield finishing 11th. Then Rob Gall, who took a bit of a different pit strategy on timing, finishes 12th today. Mark Herzog takes 13th. Bob Beltrami comes home P14 with Peter Hebron in 15th. And Marcus Tracy finishes 16th. Bill?
Paul, oh my darling, raced near or in the lead for most of the race. He gets the win ahead of Brian Bennett. The Canadian Vincent Leabert had some issues, made some contact, was able to bounce back and get a podium spot. Tom Stanley and Clark Archer round out your top five. Matthew Thunhorst, German Athanador, the Matador, comes home in 7th position in class. He was quick, had some issues. Mr. Excitement, Liam Quinn. As after that, Leif Peterson, Jimmy Oom, Samuel Scott, Adam Hollock, Adam Lindgren, Terry Taylor, and Brian Grandin round out your GTEs. Sean, what do you got for the GT3s?
Well, what I got is a big winner in Alex Saunders, and a great race by him today. Travis Warling. Boy, what a finish there for Warling. Gets it from Jimbo Pfeiffer at the line. Second place, third for Jimbo. Now, Richie Hearn's going to finish 35th overall, 16th in class in his GTE. And then you go down to Patrick Fleming, who finishes just off the podium there in 4th. Houston Hamer, he is going to finish P17 in the Daytona prototype, 37th overall. Now, Trevor Clement is going to finish 5th in the GT3s. Chuck Chambliss is going to finish 17th in the GTEs, 39th overall for him. Scott Corbin going to go P6 in his GT3. Andrew Oakey had a pretty good race, so he'll finish P7. Mark Schindel, 8th place in his GT3. Taft Baldwin. Well, Taft had a pretty good race. He'll finish 9th, just inside the top 10. Finishing 10th, Mr. Kevin Hill. The number 52 has a good day. Dick Miller. I'm sorry, I keep wanting to say Miller. Dick Mueller. He's going to finish 11th. Jeffrey Garzato, that's a 12th place finish for him. Casey Drake, 13th in the GT3s. Brian McGreevy. Man, we didn't talk about Brian hardly at all this evening. He'll finish 14th. Dan Garber, 15th for him. Ben Zahner, 16th and 17th. Going to go to Paul Stefanik. That wreck down there in turn 1 was an ender for him. He had to take the tow, and then unfortunately does not finish this race. And Joe, I think one of the few cars that didn't. We had an amazingly clean race, and now we've got some amazing interviews to talk about.
Absolutely. Our winner is first up in the DPs, Blake Reynolds, current champion as well to boot. Blake, congratulations on opening things up with another win. Now, it wasn't completely straightforward. Early on, it looks like you had to take some evasive action.
Yeah, right there at the beginning. You know, the start of these Daytona races go, it's all bunched up, and these tight corners, especially at the start, it's just really hard. The DP's kind of awkward in the slower corners anyway. My teammate Sam Adams just got really sideways in front of me, and I had to avoid the grass there. It checked up most of the field, but I was able to, I think 5 laps later or so, I was able to cleanly get by.
Now, I assume you were kind of aware of what was going on with Eric Smith and how his strategy was going. Were you at all worried that maybe he could get to the end?
I kind of was. I figured especially I think it was after the second full fuel pit stop. Dallas and I came out with Dallas and I was racing him, and then Eric came up behind us. Well, I noticed that Dallas wasn't passing me, so I was experimenting. I turned it to fuel mix 2, and he was still behind me. I was going so slow, and Eric caught up, and he was in the train, and I was just messing with them at this point, and they finally went by me when I turned it to fuel mix 3, and I was going only 160 going into turn 1. But yeah, I figured that was going to happen. However, I kind of pulled the opposite. I came in and filled up all the way with about 40 minutes left, just to do an opposite strategy, get some clean air. And I was able to push really hard, and I figured that would force Eric to pit anyway.
Well, obviously, we were kind of surprised ourselves when you let them by, and we weren't sure if it was a lift or what, but that explains that moment. Now, one last question before we let you go, because we have a lot of people to talk to. It's a new season. We got some new players involved here. Who are you eyeing as your biggest threat throughout the season as an entirety, or do you have no idea?
Well, given that Christian Challenger signed up for the European region, I watched that race earlier today, I was kind of looking at my teammates. Riding Shotgun Motorsports has always been a Texas-only team, and we this year, Adam Young, how gracious he is, let me pick some guys from outside of the Texas region, and we got a great bunch. We are going to be competitive all year long, and if I don't win the championship, one of my teammates is, and I'm calling it now.
All right. He's pointed up to the grandstands, and Blake Reynolds, who took the win today, thinks that his team will be a major force, not just in the drivers, but in the team's championship. Thanks for talking to us, Blake. Congratulations, and we'll talk to you later.
Yep, thanks, guys. Great season.
It's Blake Reynolds, our winner in the DPs. Up next, our winner in the GTEs is going to talk to Bill Paul Darling. Jumps over from the Autobahn Series here to the majors.
Paul, congratulations on the win. I'm going to go right to the turning point of your race, which I think was the first pit stop. Am I safe to assume you did not take tires the whole race, and Athanador must have taken tires on the first stop? Is that your impression?
Yeah, I think that's what happened. I had a little questionable going into the race, but I'd seen on the iRacing forums that some people had quadruple stinted tires during the Daytona 24, so that gave me enough confidence to go ahead and go no tires the whole race.
How was it feeling at the end?
Tires actually felt amazing. Could have been a quadruple stint.
Got it. Earlier on, you were happy to sit behind German Athanador for most of the early stint. You made a little poke at him every once in a while. Were you just saving fuel, or what was going on early?
Since with it being a 2.4-hour race, I just wasn't pushing, just saving fuel behind, maybe jumping on the stops, which ended up happening. Just playing it conservative.
Any heart-stopping moments, or was it pretty safe for you?
After that first stop, pulled a bit of a gap, and then I was just doing everything in my power to not get caught up in a wreck.
All right, well, here's the good news. You pick up first place points, so you'll be tied for the lead with the other class winners. Way to start the season. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you very much, guys.
Paul, my darling, your winner in the GTEs tonight. Sean, who you got?
Man, I've got Alex Saunders. Gentlemen we're kind of familiar with, Soup, and I've talked to before. Alex, congratulations. What a race. First thing I got to ask you is your pit stop 11 seconds quicker than Travis Warling on that last time in. What was the strategy there, if you're willing to reveal just a little bit?
Well, we did the Daytona 24 as practice for it last night, and we spent a lot of time fuel staving to try and extend a stint. So I just figured I'd do that here too. So I got, I think, 34 laps out of each tank, and I was able to make my last splash and dash a little faster.
Well, there you go. So seat time and a little bit of research helps you out. And I mean, you were having a good race, but certainly when you could put that kind of time between you and the guy that was chasing you, really it was just about managing the traffic. And talk about that. How was the traffic?
I thought the traffic was really good. It was probably a little better than in the official race last night. So that was real nice. this particular combination is rough when you get the GTEs that get a little bit of damage because there's such a small pace difference between the GTEs and the GT3s. But even the couple times we came along that, it was pretty easy to just deal with. I mean, for most of the race, all I was really trying to do was keep in contact with Travis, and we were able to kind of work through the traffic, and then the last stint was just go for it. So.
Well, Alex, could you think of a better way to start this major season for 2019?
Yeah, that's pretty all right. It was new series for me. The team, I got to give a shout out to all the guys at VApex. There's a lot of attention, a lot of interest in this. So it was really nice first race out to score a win for me and for the team.
Anybody you'd like to thank? Anybody else you want to throw in there before we part ways after this round one?
Yeah, like I said, the team and all the guys in the Americas that were racing with me today in that split. So Eric and Herman and Ross and Chuck, and then the guys that helped me in the 24 last night too. Like I said, that was great practice. So Clark and Russell and Taylor, Andy for running the team. Just a fun group of guys, and like I say, great way to start.
All right, Alex. Hey, again, congratulations. We will see you for round two. Most definitely. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
That was our winner in the GT3's Alex Saunders, jumping over from Lionheart. And we have another person to talk to here. 9th place finisher today, Ryan Worley, multi-race winner here in the majors. Ryan, welcome to the booth. We got to talk to you a little bit, or talk about you a little bit during the broadcast. But before we get to some of that, tell us a little bit about your race, because you certainly gave us some action.
It went pretty good near the beginning, of course, but it just seemed like that traffic, people weren't giving some room at times. And so I kind of, what really did me in is going to the second horseshoe, spinning it out, because I had to spin it to avoid dooring someone, because to me, I felt like I was getting pinched. I don't know if I was or not. I haven't looked at it, but I just looped it, and then after that, I was just on the back heel trying to come forward again.
So we saw that obviously you're involved with karting a little bit in the real world, trying to get that going. Have you had much success racing over there? How's that been going?
Unfortunately, I've only been able to go once, and that went well. Apart from getting food poisoning afterwards, but I'm looking this spring to join it's kind of a rental car league type thing. Up here at the local go-kart track, and it's an outdoor track, high speeds. They're race karts, so it's gonna try that out and see how that goes, and from there just see what happens, I guess.
Has your sim racing felt like it's prepared you pretty well for that, or do you see much translation?
When I first did the kart, the way they had to set it up for the hand controls at that time was everything was on my was set up for two hands, so the gas was on the right and the brake was on the left. Only downside is I don't have left arm, so I couldn't hit the brakes. And so I had to go around kind of coasting to the turns, and even with that, they said I had pretty good pace without even touching the brakes. So once it gets set up to where I can drive it and use the brakes, I'm sure that it'll pick up pretty quick.
Well, that's certainly good training for fuel saving, I suppose. So, Ryan, thanks for coming and talking to us, and thanks for sharing a lot of your life with us. We had a fun time telling the audience a little bit about you, because I know we've enjoyed watching you race all these years in the majors.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. It's been fun.
That's Ryan Worley, 9th place today in the DPs. Up next, we mentioned that they have been donating to a charity for this race. And of course, that is the American Cancer Society. And Sean is going to be talking to the man that is involved with bringing that on board, Michael Thompson.
Right. And I'll direct everyone quickly to cancer.org is where they can start to get information. But Michael, I'll let you talk more about it. You being a cancer survivor, I know you have a great story to share with us.
Hi, how you guys doing tonight?
Excellent.
Yeah, basically, cancer.org is, they'll help out families. I believe that they'll put up people in hotels and get them to the places where treatments are available, as well as help fund other patients who are underinsured. And they donate a lot into cancer research.
And I know you had to miss a lot of time last season. It's so great to have you back after fighting through this just horrible disease. How has it affected you on a personal level? I mean, I'm sure it's been a long fight. How are you doing now?
Well, my type of cancer is one that early on they told me that there was about 85% chance of it being completely cured. So I took that as 100% chance that it would be completely cured. We just stayed optimistic. My treatment was really aggressive, but the treatment itself was about 2 months, which doesn't seem like a long time. And I didn't think it was a long time, but it was a lot harder than I had anticipated for sure.
And are you back to 100% health now as we speak?
I'm getting there. My last scans, everything shows that it's gone, but I have to continue to get monitoring scans for like the next couple years, and then at a off and on for, I guess, the rest of my life. But the way it looks now, it's gone, and I hope it stays that way.
Well, and you know what? Listen, we certainly do too. And you and all the millions of cancer survivors worldwide, we wish you all the best, and you continue to fight and overcome, which again is just this horrible disease. But listen, all you race fans with us right now, the best thing you can do is go to cancer.org. Make a small donation if you can. Make a big donation if you possibly can, and help them out, because they are actually doing great things. And unfortunately, we haven't found a cure for cancer yet, but hopefully, this world gets together in the right place. We could maybe find a way to get rid of it here at some point. But Michael, thank you for sharing your story with us, and hopefully everybody else can get behind this and help everyone trying to fight back like you are.
And if I can add one more thing, the big obstacle for a lot of people is the financial cost. And if cancer.org can help those families that are, like I said, are underinsured, that's a huge, huge help. I was lucky to have insurance that, after I met a certain deductible, covered 100%, but that could well go into $100,000 worth of treatment for some people.
Well, again, Michael, we thank you very much, and look forward to checking in on you here throughout the season. So hopefully we get you here on the podium at some point. We'd love to talk to you from the victory lane.
Sure thing. Nice to talk to you guys. Thanks.
That was 10th place finisher Michael Thompson today. Awesome to see him out here racing in spite of the difficult circumstances he's had to go through. And just want to second his sentiments that definitely would love to see us try to help out the people that don't have the insurance available to try and fight such a horrible disease. It's something that I've seen people in my friends and family as well have to fight. So, but we've got to close up here today. And of course, we want to thank a few people before we go. A big thank you to the competition committee and everybody that helps run the majors. This is a big undertaking with 3 regions this year, and literally hundreds, more than a few thousand drivers, I believe. I have to double check to see what the numbers are officially, but a lot of people involved, of course, to make this all run. And if you're interested in helping out, out and maybe getting a little bit of swag, check out the Pacific Majors store. It is at pacificmajors.com/store. And also, if you can, please consider giving to the American Cancer Society. Again, as Sean said, that is cancer.org that you can check that out at. Thanks to Mike Willett for all his hard work, and to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. If you could, please subscribe to them because, well, I mean, you'll see all kinds of awesome racing. Just like you saw tonight, the rest of the majors, all this season, all 3 regions are going to be on for the top split. And also, you can catch the World Championship races. So thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Amjad, Bill, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. And GSRC has our own YouTube page. If you go to that, make sure that you hit the subscribe button there because you can catch all the series that we cover, including this one and many more. The next race is going to be back right here in Florida, the Daytona 500. That'll be Sunday, February 10th, 7:45 p.m. Eastern, switching from sports cars to stock cars. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.